It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Great panel for you. Iain Thomson is up in studio for us, the U.S. editor for theregister.com. Our AI guru and the author of the AI Analyst newsletter, Ben Parr, is here. And from Blackbird AI, Dan Patterson, his job is to use AI to debunk AI misinformation. Of course, AI, the topic, the announcements from OpenAI on Monday, the ChatGPT 4.0, Google's announcements at Google I.O., the firing, or is it the departure of the trust and safety team at OpenAI? A lot of AI in the news, plus a lot more. You stay here. This Week in Tech is next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 980, recorded May 19th, 2024. Head deck lead and nut Graf. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show we cover the week's tech news. Lo and behold, here he is sitting right next to me, my good friend Iain Thomson, who often fills in for me when I'm not around, but it's good to get you up here when I am.
Nice to get out and about again.
Yeah.
You know, I think too much of this has been done remotely, and obviously geographically, yes. But
well, we couldn't even start Twit until I realized that we could do Zoom, or actually at the time was Skype, because nobody is near Petaluma. Oh, except you.
It's 40 minutes up the road.
Yeah,
you know?
we're just
a
up
nice
the road
drive.
from San Francisco. But fortunately, we can get people on from all over the world. Right?
Just the side note, my God, how Skype fumbled that bag still just boggles me.
Yeah. I mean,
that is Ben Parr, ladies and gentlemen, author of the AI Analyst, co-founder of Octane AI. He writes about AI for the Information. He's been a longtime friend of the show as well. And he's got a little Octane doohickey over his left shoulder there. Hi, Ben.
A little. Wait, hold on. I have more of the robots. Hold on. There's Tiny Robot. And then back here, I've got in packages Big Robot.
Nice.
Well, we know Octane AI has got the swag on point. But what does Octane AI do?
It powers AI for 3,600 e-commerce brands. So think like you go to a Jones Road Beauty, or you go to buy something from Hexline, you're like, I can't figure out which thing to buy or what skincare routine to get. Uses AI to recommend products,
I'm always
have
wondering
quizzes,
what
things like that.
routine to get. I should really ask my little friend, but I'll ask her in a moment. I did neglect to mention you are U.S. editor for The Register. We should give him credit too. No, so we've got two journalists. Well, I guess that's giving myself a little credit. We got a journalist and some guy who's on the podcast thing. And then we've got two AI experts because Dan Patterson is also here. Hi, Dan. Good to see you.
Hi. It's great to see you. I think for 2.5 decades I was a journalist.
Former journalist.
Now I'm in
journalist.
Let's not say former, Leo. Let's just say
former.
I have a current job.
Look, if Dan wanted to go write a piece or a column somewhere, I am sure there will be bunches of publications be like, please.
And ditto Ben. Ben's still a journalist too, even though working in the business. Yeah. Dan, what is Blackbird? Tell us about Blackbird. You told us last time you were on, but I, of course, have a very short memory.
So we use a combination of artificial intelligence and human threat analysts to find misinformation and disinformation. We call it narrative attacks because it's a little easier for people who are not, if you're not really dialed into what misinformation and disinformation are, and especially when you look at, some of the way social media mis and disinformation can be applied in really hostile ways. Take Maria Ressa. She was a journalist who was the CEO of Rappler.com in the Philippines, and she was attacked by Duterte, the president of the country. She won a Nobel Peace Prize for her journalism, but she was kind of the definition of a narrative attack. We might call it doxing or other types of
What happened to her? Did
she... She's now in the States. She works at Columbia. She's a wonderful person, and she's doing great. But that's just one example of how misinformation and disinformation can be weaponized.
Yeah. we know about that, and we're going to see a lot more of it in the next few months, I'm sure, with the U.S. election on the way. Yeah. But AI is our top story. Boy, is it our top story.
No kidding, really.
The week began with OpenAI announcing ChatGPT 4.0 for Omni, and the new Her Style Assistant, as TechCrunch put it. And then the following day, I think OpenAI may have even scheduled this kind of what do they call that? Opposition to Google, adversarial scheduling, because Google's developer conference, Google I/O, was Tuesday, and they announced a lot of AI too. In fact, at the end of it, Sundar Pichai said, and meanwhile, to save you some time, we've had our AI counting how many times I said the word AI. It's 120, and then it went to 121 because he said it again. So a lot of AI in the sense that they spread AI on a lot of things. Like
toast.
Like toast. Let's start with ChatGPT 4.0. There have been some people who've said AI is at a standstill, that we're just seeing, different flavors, but we're not seeing great progress. Actually, Stephen Levy wrote an interesting piece this week in Wired, in which he said that's a mistake, just like it was a mistake for Cliff Stoll to announce the internet was never going anywhere in Newsweek at the beginning of the last decade.
Well, Bill Gates famously described it as being like CB radio at one point in one of his books.
Yeah,
he pulled that one back.
We all have handles now.
Now it's the other side of it's true that he was right about in that respect, but now it's the other side where everybody's hyping up AI. Stephen Levy's article, it's time to believe the AI hype. Some pundits suggest generative AI stopped getting smarter, but the explosive demos this week from OpenAI and Google that started the week show there's plenty more disruption to come. And here's a picture of the IKEA set that, actually I'm very jealous of the IKEA set that OpenAI used on Monday. Sam Altman did not make an appearance on Monday. The keynote was led by the woman who was going to be the CEO of OpenAI when Sam was briefly fired. But I think they did quite a good job of showing off this Scarlett Johansson sound-alike.
Well, I mean, it was quite interesting because we got in contact with Reuters. Did a story predicting, that they were going to make a big announcement on Monday. We got in contact, and they were just like, no, we're not launching GPT-5. We're just managing expectations. It's just going to be, a product update. There's nothing to panic about. So they seem to be managing expectations downwards, but it's a very interesting system. I'm curious to see what the other panelists think.
Well, the way they manage the expectations, especially with the help of Sam Altman, is kind of intriguing because initially Sam said, nope, not ChatGPT-5. Nope, not... What was the other possibility?
Going into search.
No search. That's right.
Search engine. Yeah.
It's something else. And then it was something else. It was her. To which he tweeted the following day, one word, her.
I think they've done a masterful job of manipulating expectations for a long time.
It's really interesting.
Including, we'll talk about this later in the show, but the safety board and other components of their business there, and I'm not saying that in a negative context, but they have really manipulated expectations in the media for quite a while.
Yeah. And we are going to get to the safety board because that's the other shoe that dropped this week. Everybody quit. But
she's got Galloway's tweet on this. He's just like, just to let you know, I am quitting from OpenAI as well.
I'm quitting from OpenAI, and you're quitting.
If there's bad news coming, just drop some good news right after it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was also inevitable after what happened last year that Ilya and others were going to leave. It was almost exactly the 6-month mark, I believe.
So you think it has to do with stock vesting?
Well, no, it's just a standard PR tactic. Don't announce a departure that's really big immediately. Give some time, and then you don't associate it in the same way. So
let's before we go back to the. I do want to cover the safety, but let's at least finish the idea. Steve Levy says that the AI hype. Believe the hype. Did we see something truly new on Monday with OpenAI 4.0 Omni? Ben?
I think we did see something. So like, okay, is GPT-4o is faster and better, and this stuff is happening. And I want to remind everyone, it's been a year and a half since ChatGPT came out, and people are resetting their expectations of how quickly they think stuff should move. It's insane how much stuff has moved. The big thing here for the like her style assistant is that it can understand interruption. You can interrupt her in the middle of a conversation like you would a human, and she can shift. And this is the V1 of it. It's only going to get...
The big new feature of artificial intelligence is you can interrupt it?
I always like to argue here that just as much as like the technology itself, it's huge though.
Okay.
Interface really matters, because think about when you're trying to talk to a Siri and you're just like, no, change the thing. It doesn't work. You try that with...
you can't interrupt her. Yeah, that's for sure.
Alexa or anything. This is straight up full, like think of it less interruption, full conversational. Like this is like the step towards just straight up full on conversation back and forth with an AI as if it were a human. It is much bigger than people.
It's
than
not
like...
but it's not smarter. It's not the quality of the answer.
Correct.
Is not better. It's faster. That's a huge difference.
It makes us anthropomorphize AI.
That's a
more,
big problem.
But it doesn't necessarily look. I mean, this is really impressive and fun technology to play with. My initial reaction to this was, I don't know if this is, none of us know if this is new. This is a new product that has been announced, but the capabilities might have been around for a while. So we don't really know how fast the capabilities of the technology are moving. And when we see something like this, and Leo, I've said this on some of your shows before, so forgive me.
Always repeat yourself,
you listening
because I have no
heard
memory.
this already.
Yeah,
I interviewed Nick Bostrom in 2014 or 15 when I was working for Jason Heiner at ZDNet, and I'm paraphrasing him, but one of the things he told me was that one of the great dangers of AI is that we will anthropomorphize it. That's also one of the great benefits, and one of the things that we really could get a lot as humans out of artificial intelligence. But he warned me that one of the things that we will do, just like when we look at a cloud and we see a face, we will have this impulse to think of AI like talking to another person. In fact, when we say something, a pronoun like her, that is a human pronoun. So we are anthropomorphizing this technology. And what I saw in OpenAI this week was truly impressive. It was a lot of fun to play with, but it really pushes into the anthropomorphization of artificial intelligence. And when I think about that, I try to think about, who does this serve? Who is this good for? Is this good for consumers? Is this good for business? Is this good for OpenAI? The answer could be yes to all of those things, but I really, my spidey sense of skepticism is buzzing strong.
But it's also going to make your situation and disinformation in general a lot easier. I mean, the more realistic and or more human-like the AI becomes, then the more convincing it will be for some people.
Absolutely, Ian.
I mean, the anthropomorphization. Yeah, I can't even say that word sometimes.
Yeah, it's a rough thing to say.
It is a tongue twister.
It is.
Can
it
you
was
say
inevitable.
anthropomorphization?
Anthropomorphization.
Who are you talking to, Gemini?
Anthropomorphization refers to attributing human characteristics to non-human entities like animals, objects, or concepts. It's a common technique in storytelling and art to make things more relatable, or to convey complex ideas in a simpler way.
Thanks, baby.
There you go.
Don't forget, I love you.
You know your wife.
I wanted to hear the response she had to that one. I mean, look. Actually, that does lead to another thing, which is these like it's already happening. So I talked to someone recently where they were spending, and not kidding, like $5,000 to $10,000 a month on like AI dating chat like applications, because they preferred the like ability to control the conversation to an actual human, which is also scary. This stuff is happening really, really quickly. And like, I try never to be like, this technology is good or bad. I think of things as like, this technology is out of the box. How do we adapt to a world like that? We need technologies that can help protect against disinformation. We need technologies that help us understand what's truth and what's not truth. But this stuff is moving like really fast, and it's going to be soon to a lot more consumers, because if the rumors are true, OpenAI and Apple are going to announce a partnership where you have probably the Her style assistant inside instead of Siri. And that will be the first exposure that millions of people have to these AIs, because there's still millions of people who have never touched or even heard of a ChatGPT.
This is playing off of Mark Gurman's newsletter from today's Power On newsletter, where he said the company will unveil new generative AI features at its Worldwide Developers Conference, very likely because of their deal with OpenAI, which we had heard was close to closing. But also Apple's talking to Google about Gemini.
Yeah, but I mean, let's face it, Gemini is not much cop compared to OpenAI's products at the moment. I don't know how you've all found it, but I've been trying out Gemini and I'm not impressed.
I'm having a hard time deciphering. I used Gemini to help me better understand the naming conventions.
So
that was a joke, a dry joke. That was the one thing I took out of Google I/O is I have no idea what these products are called or why.
yeah, that's Google I/O in a nutshell, really, for the last 20 years. So, but really, my question is, okay, so clearly that what's happening here is the productization of AI and making it more appealing to the general consumer. And if Apple does, in fact, put her on the iPhone, people will see that as a big deal breakthrough. But my question is the underlying technology any better? Is it any smarter? It's faster and it's got a kind of lilting style to the voice, all of which leads us to think it's a human, which is I think a negative in the long run. It's dangerous anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean,
but is it smarter?
Yes. Well, caveat, yes. Like if you look at the actual technical documentation for GPTO, there's big performance upgrades specifically for non-English speaking. So these are baby steps towards a bigger change. There will be a GPT-5. I wouldn't be shocked if OpenAI called it something else at some point. The question that I think you're really asking is this leading to the fabled AGI?
Yeah, is it getting closer? Is it getting better? Is it getting,
I mean, my answer is yes, but no one really knows how much time.
It's a mystery.
If you look at the panic tweets of people who are leaving from who've left the Superalignment team because that team doesn't really exist anymore, the answer might be sooner than we think. My general sense is inevitably you're throwing enough people, engineers, and resources, you are going to go and hit that point. The big question, of course, that goes back and forth is, can the existing transformer models, which underpin GPT, which underpin Gemini, can they actually on their own achieve AGI, or does it require an additional new leap in understanding of AI, something else like that? Which there is stuff coming out, Mamba and things like that.
And are the LLMs that are built on top of those transformers really the path to AGI?
Good question.
My guess is that we will hear companies say they've achieved it, whether this is true AGI or not. I think that we will hear about this sooner than later.
So
I'm kind of a skeptic about it myself. I'm treating it a bit
I'm
like fusion.
100% a skeptic.
I'm treating it like fusion energy at the moment. It's always another 10 years down the line.
How do we know,
precisely.
How do we know if it achieved
exactly? That's why I think we're going to hear them say they've been talking and hyping this up. So I think we're going to hear about this as look, we've achieved it. Here's the product. Some point, but whether that really, if we talk to neuroscientists, whether they will agree, that might be.
To be clear, the AGI is different than, say, true intelligence. AGI is just, it performs better than a human at lots of tasks. Not necessarily that it is intelligent on its own. Sentient, I would say. I feel like AGI, as it's defined, is relatively close comparatively. Sentience might be who the F knows. That one is a whole different game.
Yeah.
Bostrom and others would say ASI is after that, super intelligence.
Okay.
At which point we become pets to the machines, and then
I don't know.
It's a progression here. There's no test. It's not like taking a pregnancy test and being like, you are sentient or not sentient.
It's subjective. It's really very subjective. There is no objective definition. It's not the Turing test. It's not the Chinese room test. There's really no way. People don't even agree on what it means. But also, I would suggest that's more of an academic kind of media conversation. The real question is AI useful to humans, and is it getting more useful to humans? So initially, my initial reaction to LLMs was, this is a parlor trick. It's super correct on speed. It's not, it's autocorrect on speed. It's not that useful. But as time's gone by, I've seen, in fact, it is quite useful in a variety of different ways. And I think partly the focus of these companies on music and art and video is more performative than it really is where the real help is going to be. In fact, I think it's a dangerous game for them to play because it just makes artists upset when really that's not, nobody wants, I don't know what anybody wants.
Yeah.
But do we really want music, film, and pictures created by AI? I think there's a lot of more useful things AI could be doing that would justify its existence. Protein folding, inventing new cures for cancer, making the subway run on time. There's lots of things an AI could do that would be useful. And I would love to see that more than AGI.
I don't want to just log roll for our company, but utility and usefulness is precisely what we aim for. We have a
that should be the criterion, right?
Blackbird.ai.
Yeah.
It's look, Leo, you in particular will like this. It's compass.blackbird.ai, and it is, I won't call this a fact checker because that's a dangerous thing to say. We call it a context checker. It is slower than other LLMs, but look at the responses. The responses add context to almost anything: photos, pictures, video, claims that you type in. Compass will answer those.
That's actually hugely valuable. Wouldn't that be great to assign that to Twitter, for instance, and just fact check Twitter?
We can use it on. You can use it on almost any social network.
I think
just drop in a link and it will.
We need to just have it integrated directly in. Maybe one day.
This is like Snopes on steroids, right?
Yeah, it kind of automates that process, and I don't really want to bring it up here because it is my employer. And I don't want you to think I'm just hyping something, but your question about utility and the usefulness of it, that's what we tried to answer when we built this. And that is what I think is really where you're going with, protein folding or other very narrow or specific uses that are incredibly valuable and important.
I was at TED this year. I mentioned AI over 350 times, by the way, at the TED Talks. And
you beat Google. That's good. Congratulations.
They got 5 days of talks,
okay. You spread it out.
Easy to beat. But it was I had a conversation with a couple of professors and MDs, and I came away with the conclusion that the way we talk about cancer is not going to be anywhere near the same in 10 years. You will not think of it as an incurable thing. You will think of it as AI can create a super targeted set of medicines and products that eliminate your cancer. That's the non-subjective, the objective test for AI. We should forget this AGI conversation. It's almost philosophy. It's worthy of Nick Bostrom, but not of the rest of us. But saying here's a practical use that's actually saving lives, is curing people. That's something you can measure and would be useful and is non-threatening. It doesn't sound like Scarlett Johansson, but I guess it could.
It's got to be checked out, though. We did a piece on this just recently, where they actually Google DeepMind was predicting, various different types of compounds which could be made.
Oh, I saw that.
And it turns out most of them are useless.
Mundane. Yeah.
It's like you can put those together.
But wait a minute. I saw your piece, but even if 10% or 1% were useful and novel.
Oh, sure, but you've then got to find that 1%.
Who cares if thousands were useless?
Yeah, you've got to find that 1%, though. That's the thing.
But it's a start.
Yeah, certainly.
That's where AI can be useful. I mean, there's a reason for the AGI discussion, because if you have a true AGI, then you end up with a machine, essentially, that can go in its own direction to
Do we want that? I don't want that.
I think if you had an AGI and you gave it, and it was a true one, and it was just like, your mission is to cure cancer, you could see it work faster than a human. There are things. True. There's all, like, whether we want it or not, I do think it is inevitable. I just don't know if it's 2 years or 10 years. I don't think it's that much longer than that. But this is a whole set of things. I think right now the clear applications are like AI for medicine, AI for these specific use cases, AI to, even robotics is like an example, and it can be as like simple as like, cleaning drains and things like that. Or I just like posted this. I didn't even put this in the like rundown. The cruise
AI
founder
can
just raised
clean
150.
AI can clean
machines.
drains?
It helps control machines figure out where to go.
Yeah.
I learned about this company that's doing this like this week. Or like the cruise founder just raised $150 million for a new robot startup called The Bot Company. I don't know what it'll be, but I'm pretty sure what he's trying to go for, if I had to, there's a lot of people are going to go for the like Rosie the robot in your home kind of deal.
As long as it doesn't drag pedestrians under its chassis.
Yeah, okay. Cruise has got a slight problem with
That's,
that.
by the way, why he's the former Cruise CEO. Cruise is settled, by the way, with the woman who
really?
Got dragged. I think it was a significant
They haven't
amount of money.
restarted operations in San Francisco
I think
yet.
they're done. I think Cruise is done. I don't think they're...
they'll be back.
You think
It'll
they'll be
a
back?
while,
There's too much
though.
money put into it, surely.
Too much money.
Yeah, they're not going to give up on that. I wouldn't just go.
Well, they gave the market to Waymo, essentially. Yeah.
This is where managing press expectations really does matter.
Yeah.
See, also
In addition
Tesla.
to not when people
Don't
Tesla,
drag
there you go.
pedestrians and manage expectations. It's something AI
Well, I
probably
mean, this
good
is something
at.
Tesla's finding out to its cost. If you tell people it's an autopilot, they're going to treat it like one.
All right, let's take a break. Let's talk more. I do want to talk. Have you all used Omni 4.0? Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your experience with it. I'll talk about my experience with it, and then I would like to talk about what's happening with the so-called Superalignment team at OpenAI, which is you could say their trust and safety team, and it seems to have disappeared or imploded. Lots more to talk about. AI is, of course, one of the many topics we'll be covering today, but it is one of the most interesting. What's great about this is we talk about it almost every show now, and it changes almost. It's not like we're repeating the same material. 4.0 has really moved the conversation to a new place.
And that is different from the previous. We just lived through Web3, crypto, metaverse, VR.
All of which never went anywhere.
Hype cycles, right. They were very short and very meh hype cycles that didn't do exactly what you just said, Leo, which is progress, improve, and add usefulness and utility.
So that's to Stephen
AI
Levy's
does
point.
that.
Progress is being made.
Yeah.
Let's take a little time out. We've got Ben Parr. We got AI experts on the show today. Ben Parr, author of The AI Analyst, but he's also figured out how to get Apple to put
it does
balloons.
that. If I do this, for those who
you're
not
gonna
see.
have fireworks. Yes, there you go. He's also the co-founder of Octane AI and writes about AI for The Information, and he's figured out how to make Apple do things. Your little buddy. See, Siri isn't completely stupid. Iain Thomson is also here. He's one of the... Are you a boffin? No.
No. Boffin's an affectionate term for scientists. I'm just the person that writes about boffins occasionally.
He's the guy who writes about boffins at the register.com. Great to have you.
Always fun.
And, of course, good friend Dan Patterson, director of content at Blackbird AI, who has been, this is actually, that I think about it, this is kind of the direction your whole career has been going in the last, say, 10 years anyway, is fighting the good fight to help people survive in the face of big tech.
I think I've written about and produced more about the impact of technology than the news of technology, maybe for the last decade or so.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a great, we need that. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Wow, you too.
I found we've kind of trended more in that direction too, haven't we? I don't think we were ever the network where here's the new shiny gadget. What do you think? You going to buy it? But more on how this stuff changes your life or affects your life and how you can use it better. I think that's always been our goal. So thank
Just
you.
Complete aside before we go to the commercial break. All the new like AI pins and things. God, they're not good yet.
Okay, I ordered 2 things now. Maybe tell me if I'm stupid. First of all, I did buy the Meta glasses, and while they're not,
Those are
okay.
better.
You're going to say something bad, but I'm going to say something good.
no, they're good.
Yeah, I think the sound quality is great. They're great for listening to music. The cameras on there take decent pictures, but you can also point them at things. And admittedly, but if you attach that to maybe, something her-like, I mean, they're really a first step along the way to something that I think is a form factor we're going to want. So I got those. I also got the Brilliant Labs. I haven't received them yet. The Brilliant Labs glasses, which are kind of the same thing, only they have Perplexity AI built in, and they're a heads-up display. So I like that because I could, unlike the Meta, I can see out, see what I'm on the screen itself in front of me. It's an OLED layer in the glass. And then I just bought the Limitless pin. That's you're talking about pins. I never fell for, I admit. I never fell for the humane pin. I kind of knew that wasn't it. And there are a few other things I didn't buy, but I thought this was very interesting. This is a little clip that is always listening and then analyzes what it hears and sends you their analysis.
I bought one of those too.
Did you?
Not here yet.
Yeah.
I mean, that one makes sense and the price makes sense. The humane pin.
All of these are cheaper than One Vision Pro. I got everything for less than One Vision Pro.
I mean, the humane pin costs like $700, $800, and they needed to put the large language model on the chip and not in the cloud.
And there was a
'cause it has
subscription.
such lag time.
Yeah.
And it's just a T-Mobile subscription.
Right.
So which is, and then there's like the Rabbit R1, which did not get great
Didn't buy that
reviews.
either.
It's small.
No.
I got it right here, and it's
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's cute though. Look at it.
Oh yeah,
Look at it. It's really cute.
So it is. I bought this for the reason that many people did. One, teenage engineering.
Yeah,
Come on, like
right.
hipster design. But
Benito
two,
was all excited
I
about
like
that,
this
too.
idea
Yeah.
of deconvergence. Right, for so long, for a decade and a half, everything converged on the phone. Your music player and maps and everything else converged on the phone. I love that we live in an era of gadgets coming back. I have an analog pocket. It does very little, but it's a fun gadget.
Right.
I don't want to play games on my phone. I want to play games on my pocket. Anyway, so that's the value of the Rabbit.
Honestly, the Limitless is really the beginning of her. I want to put her in my ear, basically, right? I want Scarlett Johansson in my ear,
No, that's a
loving
mental
me
image
and
that's going
only
to
me.
Right.
No, I like the idea of an
there's actually-
assistant, always available assistant.
Yeah.
Actually, there was I'll try to remember the name of the thing. There was like at TED, when I was at TED, they had one of the presentations is like earpieces you put on like each side of the ears. I will go and find this, but like they like
Don't,
you could
because
say
I'll end up
things
buying
like-
it and be greatly
you could say
disappointed.
things like, "Could you like remove the sound of the baby from the room?
Oh,
Can you
love that.
isolate Jeremy's voice in
Oh.
addition to all the normal." And it looked cool. It's still like a little bit clunky and big, but they're coming out with a version of it theoretically in a year.
This is the future of hearing aids. I think hearing aids
Yeah.
are going to merge with smart tech and become something more than just a way to hear what your wife is yelling at you. Anyway, there are interesting products. Nothing is there yet, but I think we're getting
No, I mean a pair
closer
of
and closer.
glasses that I could wear.
That's what
Say,
these
at-
brilliant
at-
ones.
say,
They have my
at-
prescription.
Yeah, but at say conferences or something,
Yeah.
and you go and meet somebody,
So
and
that's
you,
Iain.
you just get whispering in your ear.
Yeah.
This is so and so from so
Yeah,
and so. They've
exactly.
read that. It's
That's what I'm waiting for.
The glasses are the clear first form factor. We are already used to them. We'll see some of the others. The device is called the IO1. IYO1 is the.
Oh, yeah, I've heard
one
about that.
was
Yeah.
At TED.
Okay. So I think we're getting some real innovation happening. On the software side, it's IO.audio, IYO.audio. Oh, yeah, they look like gauges. I've seen the video of these. They look like you've got big gauges in your ear. Like
Yeah.
it's a statement.
which in a way it is.
Were you impressed?
It's a good demo. Like, look, demos on stage, you have to always discount because, there's like stuff going on in the background. If it works as described, I want it. In a nicer form factor, it'd be great. But I mean, that sounds awesome. You're in like a busy room. You can like have it assisted and you can like, isolate stuff.
Okay,
That sounds cool.
the original ones are $1,650. They don't say how much the IO1s are, but the deposit is $60. But I'm not going to put a deposit down until I know how much they're going to cost. Oh, wait a minute. They expect it to be $600. That's not so bad. And if you want LTE, $600. Interesting. All right. Let's take a little time out because I've got to get some more money so I can buy this. That's where the advertisers come in. Very handy. Actually, this is one I bought. So this is one I thought was so cool. I actually went out and got it. It's called Mylio. I've talked about this before. You know when Picasa was purchased by Google, and I was so disappointed because Google did not put any of the features of Picasa in Google Photos, and we lost the one thing that Picasa was great at, which is organizing your photos. Well, in some ways, this is the successor to that, but it does it all with AI. It does it all intelligently. This is a way to store your data, photos, videos, documents, without putting them in somebody else's cloud, eliminating duplicates, fully encrypted, and free for your first device. So a great way to try it. You don't have to get the Mylio Photos Plus subscription right away. Just download it for your Mac, your Windows PC, your iOS, or your Android. I would download it for the device you have the most storage in. I now have 200,000 plus documents, photos, and videos in my Mylio. It does automatic categorization. It just kind of like Google Photos, only locally and even smarter. It does automatic face recognition, but you have to tell it, give it 5 photos or 10 photos, say, that's my wife, okay, and then it goes through the rest of them in the background, tags them all. It is the way to take 200,000 photos, videos, and documents, organize them, consolidate them, curate them, control them, all in a single library, all without exposing them to the public cloud. I am blown away by this, and it's more than a backup solution for me. It's now my organization solution and backup solution. I back it up to my Synology NAS, so it never leaves my network. But you can also use Mylio has its own encrypted cloud solution, but you can also use your existing public cloud solution because it encrypts before you upload it, so it's completely private. Start for free or sign up for their paid plan. You'll get automatic backups, syncing between devices. So now that I'm a paying subscriber, I have it on everything. All my phones, all my desktops, all my laptops, all my tablets, and all my photos are there everywhere I go, 200,000 plus. You also get duplicate file cleanups. It will pull all my photos from Instagram and Facebook and Google Photos. In fact, that was the first thing I did, is download everything from Google Photos, deduped it because there were a lot of duplicates, saved the best copy. It's incredible. For only $9.99 a month or $99 a year, you can get Mylio Photos Plus, which lets you organize, manage, and protect an unlimited number of photos and videos on all your devices. Take control of your digital assets. This thing really works. It's what you're looking for, I promise. Mylio Photos, Mylio. You get started for free with the basic version for one device, or take full advantage of the platform with Mylio Photos Plus. We've got a deal, too, for you, 25% off your annual or monthly subscription to Mylio Photos Plus. To sign up and get that 25% off, go to mylio.com/twit25. That's MYLIO, mylio.com/twit25 for 25% off. You know, if you're just wondering what this could do, download the free version, put it on a device, and see. You will be blown away, and it is incredible. Love it. Mylio, mylio.com/twit25. We thank them so much for their support. All right. Again, I still have to ask the question, I guess we don't have to ask this anymore. It's clear that this technology is useful today and is getting more useful. Are you a skeptic, Iain?
I was at first, and I have to say, when ChatGPT first came out, as a journalist, I looked at that and I thought, I know what a lot of publishers are thinking right now. It's like, we can get rid of those pesky journalists and start doing everything by AI. And we tried it out. We did it. I did think at one point it would be quite useful for things like outage stories or financial results. but it's just not accurate enough. You spend as much time editing the stuff to make sure it's accurate as you would if you'd actually written the piece yourself. I think it's going to be very useful. It's, as Ben has said, it's increasing at a rate of knots in a way that other technologies haven't. My skepticism is waning. I'm actually starting to get more all in on this.
What about, Ben? What about accuracy, though? What about mistakes that AIs make? There are lots of them.
You think about, and you look at the research, and you see that hallucinations, which is mistakes, basically.
Yeah, I don't. You know why I avoided that word? Because it's an anthropomorphization.
I know.
Yeah.
It's good branding, to be clear, by the AI research community.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not wrong.
It's a mistake. Stop
hallucinating.
calling it hallucination.
And humans, by the way, humans do that.
Yeah.
I mean, if I asked Elon, did the Eiffel Tower ever burn? I wouldn't necessarily trust your answer.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, humans make mistakes. That's what we do. But I'm calling it a hallucination when it's just basically a mistake. It's just a mistake. Points out, it's PR speak.
Yeah. I mean, look, to buy all the semantics, the whole point being, it's going down in terms of the number of mistakes it makes. Still makes mistakes. Yeah. Like I was trying the new Google. If you do a Google search, you get Gemini results now. I don't know if you have those. And they're usually accurate, but they're not always accurate.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, I actually reinstalled Google Assistant on my phone because I tried Gemini for a couple of weeks and it was so useless. It was just no, I'll have the old Assistant back, thanks.
I want to defend. I want to defend Gemini because I've been using it too, and while it's different in its capabilities, I think it's also surprisingly useful. One of the benchmarks that I use, and maybe it's not a good benchmark. I created a custom GPT for the computer language I use, and it's really useful for me because I don't remember all the, it's easy to, I have an 8-foot shelf of reference materials. It knows all that stuff, so I can query it and say, well, what's the syntax for this? And it's always right because I'm saying stick to the 8-foot shelf. I tried that with Gemini without any training, and it did the same. It was just as good. And I thought, oh, well, I've been wasting my time with a custom GPT. Gemini is pretty impressive. The thing about Gemini is it could do it in all the languages. So you just say, okay, you can now do it in Python. Oh, that's cool. Now do it in C. Oh, that's neat. Now do it.
And have you tried Claude?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Well, I despite my skepticism, I use generative AI tools every single day. I use Claude, ChatGPT, or GPT 4.0. Gemini, and almost every publicly available model. If I can run it locally, I will run it locally. And I use this as an assistant. It works alongside me. So, and I use it in my job. So if I try to generate an article or a story in a traditional news article, Ian, I imagine that you're pretty accustomed to writing a head, deck, lead, and nut graph, and then you have the details of your story, and then maybe you write a kicker. In that story, you have quotes from experts, you have some data and some details. Now, much of those details, it will get wrong. It cannot do that. However, I will use, particularly Claude is very good at this. I will tell Claude, I will upload, so my threat analysts will write, here are 5, and you can find this at our at our blog. They will say, here are 5 narratives that we have found around Navalny, around the death of Alexei Navalny. When we say narratives, here are 5 mis and disinformation themes around Navalny. Yes, I do this.
It's good for finding disinformation, ironically.
Every day. Yeah, Leo, we upload our charts. You can see our data. We can show our work. And what I do is upload their work to Claude and to ChatGPT. And then I say, please suggest 10 heads and 10 decks that have to be 60 characters long. The deck must be 200 characters long. It must be a full sentence. And never, ever once has these models produced one thing that is useful. What they do is produce many things that are useful. And then as a human writer who's written thousands of stories,
I've been saying this all along. Think of it as an assistant.
Right? Exactly, and I combine those, and then I write a head, a deck, a lead, and a nut graph, and the rest of the story.
I'm sorry. Hey, what is a head, deck, lead, and nut graph? I've got to get some help.
It's just journalist jargon, man.
In journalism and writing, those terms are all about structuring an article effectively. Here's a quick run.
Oops, I stopped her. Go ahead, please. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
She knew.
I may never know what a head deck need.
Think of it like the pyramid of news.
It's usually fast.
Yes, right, exactly.
And-
That's right.
And this is why the newest version will be so
Sorry,
useful,
I'm having
because
issues right now. Our systems
Won't
are
have that.
experiencing heavy
This
load.
is 4.0.
Please try again later.
This is 4.0. By the way, the cute, clever, cutesy voice that they showed on Monday is not yet available. So this is as close as I can get. I tried to make it cuter. I said, be a valley girl, do some more up talking and vocal fry, but it never quite got that good. So
I still think there's
the
a
good
huge-
news is,
Anyway.
even though we interrupted, I did get the text of head, deck, lead, and nut graph here. So if I were a normal human, I could look this up and get some fairly useful information.
Yeah. The point is that it will spit out 10 things. And what I'm, again, kind of making a dry joke, it won't produce one thing that is useful. It produces
Right.
many
10.
things that are kind of useful. Not one of them I could throw into a story and say, this is good. But I can pick out a word here, a phrase there. And that is, I think, a very efficient way for me to work alongside AI, but it just can't do what I do. It can't.
Yeah.
I mean,
But it shouldn't.
if I were to submit a story, no. But
You don't want it to. I mean,
I don't know. Maybe
it
we
might
do.
be good
I don't know if I care.
snaking drains. I mean, there are some things it can do, but I think there are some human attributes that we want humans to continue to create, like writing, painting, singing, opera.
All that art that was crushed in the iPad.
Yeah. Oh God.
Grief,
Oh,
that was
God.
just insane. Samsung responded as well. It's like, we won't crush the life out of art. It's like, yeah, you will.
That
but
was
it a
smart
very
of
good one.
Samsung to
Right.
jump on
Yeah.
that. By the way, I have to point out that her misspelled head, H-E-A-D, deck,
Ugh.
D-E-C-K,
Come
lead,
on.
L-E-A-D, and nutgraph.
That's what I'm talking about, man.
Come on, man. You don't know how to spell. And nutgraph, G-R-A-P-H.
Yeah, I mean, I was playing
Please.
around with feature ideas because I've just done a piece on the 10th anniversary of Nokia being taken over and shut down by Microsoft. So I asked, ChatGPT, it's like, so give me some notable tech anniversaries, tech news anniversaries over the last, in 1994, 2004, 2014, and they were all wrong. Absolutely every single one of them. It was trying to tell me that Tetris was released in, a year before it actually was.
Wait a minute.
We're going to be doing this an awful lot in this show. I can't help
When was
forgetting.
Tetris released?
Tetris was released on June 6th, 1984. It's amazing how it's still so popular, isn't it?
Okay, I don't want to get in a conversation. I just want
you know what? There's going to be an episode, and I don't know how long down the line, where one of the Zooms is going to be like on the podcast, going to be like the AI assistant, and we're going to have the back and forth.
Yeah.
It's going to jump
only
in,
months away.
and it's
only
going to just be like, no, Dan, you're wrong. Let me tell you about this thing, and then it'll be like straight up wrong, and then there's like a fight.
Was she right? By the way?
Yeah.
Was she accurate? Was it 1986?
No, it was not. Well, technically, it's a tricky
It's
one.
what you're talking about
Because-
as a release. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one because it was released in the Soviet Union,
Right.
as was. So, I mean, technically, it was done in 1985, but it wasn't actually released in the West until later.
Okay.
And also, it was only
Maybe
available.
it got that nuance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it seems like we're all in agreement that the most useful way to use an AI is in conjunction with a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's going to be the definition of AGI when it doesn't need us anymore,
Oh, yeah. That's a good indicator.
right?
I mean, I'm being overly skeptical and overly critical, but I do use AI tools every day. I think Perplexity is a fascinating tool, and I do think it is improved. 6 months or a year ago, Perplexity would get answers wrong pretty frequently, but now I use it routinely without thinking about it.
Do you
being
use it
wrong.
as your main search?
Not my main search, no, but I found that hard. Just the lag is a little hard. But the results on Google, have been challenging lately too.
Which is, by the way,
Google
why
searches.
4.0 is important, because they reduce the lag dramatically. Although, as you can see
yeah.
in that pathetic demonstration, it's not. not completely eliminated.
But I mean, as you were saying,
what this has really done with Google as well is kind of change it from an information retrieval system. When we type in a query, Google gets information, it brings it back, it lists it in order of relevance, or the old Google did. And now with these generative features, Google is now a creation engine as well as a search engine. I just think that shift is really interesting. And it's maybe something that was missed in I.O. with all the product announcements. But I think Google becoming a content engine is really interesting. A lot of the features that they announced, much like the Arc browser, Google will now just generate a page for you. And much like, I think, seeing, Ben, you pointed this out, right? There are millions of people who have never experienced ChatGPT, but will with this Apple announcement at WWDC. Google will do the same thing with millions, billions of people will experience generative features in their search, which will change a lot of how we obtain information.
Yeah, I mean, as I said at I.O., Google will do the Googling for you was the direct quote.
But that's that's right. That's a bad story for content creators, isn't it? Because they've now been dealt out of the equation. Their only
media
job
business is freaking out.
Yeah, their only job is to provide the fodder for the AI, and we don't have any direct contact with them. In fact, this week, OpenAI announced that they're going to start using Reddit content, which I think will greatly improve ChatGPT. But I think there are a few Redditors who aren't so happy about that. They're not getting a cut in the deal. My attitude is, maybe I'm in a different perspective than most people because I don't have to really earn a living anymore, et cetera, et cetera. Great. That's going to make ChatGPT better. Bravo. And
it depends which subreddit you're going on, but no.
Well, it depends how they use the thing. I don't know if you know, there was a video I watched where in the early AI days, to have AI get conversational, there weren't a lot of public databases. They used the Enron emails because they were made public.
Oh my God.
So now you have a lot. It's good to have access for a pure AI system to have back and forth conversation.
Stuff. Yeah.
Right. I get the issue Redditors would have, but also the flip side is you've been creating content for free.
Yeah, they've been doing it all along. Yeah.
On this website, and
what'd you think?
It's
what'd you think was going to happen?
I mean, it's a crazy world.
But that's different than somebody like the Register whose content's getting scraped by a Google or an OpenAI and then served up as search results without ever having people click back to the source.
It's a bit of a pain, it's got to be said, but I don't honestly see a way out of it. I mean, as Ben said, this kind of data is being scraped on a massive scale.
You're awfully sanguine about it. I don't think the New York Times is quite so happy.
We don't have their lawyers, but
don't even know if they'll win. That'll be an interesting case.
I mean, if it was actually, I check occasionally just to see if it's actually regurgitating our stuff in full, and I can see elements of it, but they're not actually directly copying. Yes, the New York Times and others, they are going up against it. I've got a feeling they're going to lose on that front, to be honest, because the actual occurrences where you're directly copying, and their argument is that people will use this to get around the firewall.
No, they're not.
They're really not.
There's no legit way to read the New York Times on OpenAI. But I would be more concerned with the way that search engines are using this content. If I ask when's, I don't know, what's a good example? Well, I just actually did.
I'm trying to find the tweet because when ChatGPT first launched, I went onto it and it was just right, who is the journalist Iain Thomson? And it got the name right. Apparently,
but it said you were dead?
Well, apparently I'm an award-winning journalist and I haven't won an award since school. I've written for the New York Times. Nope. The Guardian. Nope. It was just
on the other hand, I asked Perplexity AI, what is a Roth IRA? And I got probably the answers I wanted, right? Every bit of information I wanted. Now, it does give you a footnote. This is all you get, is a footnote to Investopedia and Investor.Vanguard and Fidelity and Khan Academy. But I would expect that the folks at Khan Academy might be a little miffed that the content from their video has been extracted and presented to me with this minor little footnote linking back. I'm never going to link back because I've got everything I want right here. So isn't that problematic?
My guess is that we are entering an age where commodity much information is commodified, and information like that, what is a Roth IRA, is could be considered a commodity information. It's just something that is in the general knowledge base, and that is something that AI will be able to summarize very well, but that there could be outliers, musicians, artists, good writers who creates things that AI can't replicate, and those outliers will continue to exist. Everyone else is going to become training data.
So if you're not Bach or Beethoven, get out of music? Is that how it works?
There's going to be a big shift. Like we were talking about Google search. Like now you have the AI results in the top. How many people are not clicking links as a result of that?
That's what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Google estimated that there will be a drop of 40% to publisher websites. Google's own numbers say 40% drop to publisher websites, which is why the media was freaking out. Yeah,
not merely because those websites are getting hurt, but Google's going to run out of material if you don't incentivize people to create content. If you pull the rug out from under them, then 5 years down the road, you have no source.
Yeah. This is literally why there's companies building AIs to like have conversations to train AIs, which sounds like its own recursive loop.
That doesn't sound like a good idea at all.
I'm curious, like just feeding it more and more like new data doesn't necessarily, have the exponential returns as it did before. There would probably have to be another leap or two, but you have to have new and current information for the AIs to go and be useful. Right. I'll say one other thing, which like we're thinking about like the humans in loop. I think this is part of why like there'll always be humans in loop. It'll just look different. I'll give you an example. There was like a company that went viral on Twitter called Payman. Instead of you paying the AI to do work for you, the AI pays you to do work for it. You could imagine an AI eventually being able to write articles or write code or do design work, but it loops in a human to do the code review, to give design feedback, to choose out edit an article, but the script is flipped, but a human is still involved. Crazy stuff.
That actually, I told my daughter this would be a good job as tuning AIs. I'm not sure. There may be more jobs doing that than writing editorials.
Yeah, I mean, on the other hand, I saw on LinkedIn somebody was actually advertising for people to do that, and you can work as many hours as you want.
$1 an hour, right?
$15 an hour, yeah, minimum wage.
You can't live on that.
And it's kind of like, yeah. Well, first off, who are you going to get for that kind of salary? It's going to be somebody who will be do it for 20 hours and just to make a living. And the quality is not going to be there.
Hi, this is Benito. I have a quick...
Benito's our technical director and our producer, and is a musician, and who hates...
No, I think like these middle managers, CEOs, those are the jobs that can be taken by AI.
And should be taken
Exactly.
back.
I think these are the jobs that AI can do.
Get rid of the telephone sanitizers, the admin,
we need
the middle managers. Put them on a ship.
What this really is... This really affirms your model, Leo, where we might lose advertising as a source of revenue, but if you develop and build a community that you interact with and that is emotionally invested, maybe there is a parasocial relationship, maybe there's a genuine social relationship, I think those media enterprises will survive, but advertising-based media might have a lot of challenges in the next decade.
Yeah, we know that we are going through a choke point. If we could survive through the choke point, the future is bright, because the more AI content's out there, the more people are going to value real human content, real human relationships, real human communities. And so as long as if we can survive through this narrowing of revenue and narrowing of audience, I think you're right. The future's bright. It's not a great future for, a big media outlet, because they don't have that community. They don't have those relationships. It really fosters a small, kind of almost cottage industry of content. The Register would survive in a context like that.
Platformer.
Yeah, Platformer, Casey Newton's newsletter. Because you guys establish a relationship with an audience. The audience likes your particular brand of snark and information, and no AI can duplicate that, doesn't want that, but they have to be willing to pay for it, and that's challenging.
It's still the main problem for the publishing industry as a whole. But I think we're seeing, particularly with the case of Reddit, but also with photo libraries, with commercial companies with a large amount of sort of intellectual, large amount of data, they will sell it to AI companies, and that's another revenue stream for them. Yeah. But with Reddit, I don't know. There are some fetid areas of Reddit.
I'm sure OpenAI will not ingest the fetid.
They're like, yes, anything that is the NSFW is like
stay
not
away from the fetid. Yeah.
Or maybe it is because they talked about the AI like being like the pornographic stuff. I think they talked about like eventually being able to do more of that because that's what humans do.
Isn't that always what happens? Is that's where the revenue stream is?
Well, honestly, pornography drove online payments.
Drove VHS recordings. There's a lot of technologies that survive because of dirty old men.
That's how Blu-ray
and women.
That's how Blu-ray beat HD. Yeah, that's right. All right, let me take
one final note.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, final note. Final's
note,
good. I like it.
About the media and AI. You're right. We might shrink down and have smaller news organizations, media organizations do what you do and what Casey does and super serve audiences. But I have this feeling in my gut that was pronounced during I.O. about democracy and the Fourth Estate. And
we need it.
Our shared reality, our sense of shared reality that has atomized and is maybe only at the beginning of fracturing. And without the Fourth Estate, I have deep concerns about the future of democracy.
I agree 100%.
I think it's already fractured to a large percent because now people will just,
for sure.
Because I was explaining this to somebody in the office. When I was growing up in the UK, we had 3 television stations. We actually got the day off school to see the opening of the 4th one. We had like a dozen national newspapers, maybe 6 or 7 radio channels, and that was it. And that led to a consensus in a lot of ways. And now with the multiplicity of media outlets out there, in some cases specifically designed to for particular audiences, then people can make their own reality. And I think you're right; it is very dangerous for democracy.
Humans are naturally tribal, and it fosters tribalism, and it fosters a fragmentation. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, an experiment like the United States requires transcending local tribalism to have a shared national vision and identity. And it's not just the media. But it's all fragmenting. It's all fragmenting. We have become smaller and smaller villages and greater tribal animosity. And that isn't a good trend. I agree with you, Dan. This is, in the long run, disaster awaits. But I don't see any way of averting it. I mean, I think this is the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's the oncoming train.
Well, you can always move to China. They're way ahead of us on that front.
Much better. Well, you know what? That is an alternative to tribalism, is collectivism. And we've never been good about that in the United States because we have this mythology of the independent, individual.
Homesteader.
We're very individualistic, right? But in a collectivist society like China, maybe that is the source of strength.
Well, I think they're eating our lunch at the moment. So
yes.
Or just at some point,
they have some economic troubles right now.
True.
They got some things. Someone's just going to throw and be like, let's just let the AI run the government. We'll call it democracy. See what I did there?
Honestly, one of the reasons, I hate to admit this, but my secret reason for really being excited about AGI in the future that is really AI ridden is that the AI will do a better job than we have. And maybe a more rational job than we have of running things. I'm not sure I want an AI government. Well, but we're clearly
rational
irrational. Humans are not rational, right?
No.
I guess an AI is only rational depending on who defines what's.
Well, this is the whole paperclip maximizer road we're going down.
That's not
right.
Rational.
This is the AI is going to build things that are good for the AI, but if they're only tuned to do one particular task, then that is the rational task they will do until the end of time.
But we've learned that lesson, and so we can give AI.
Oh, right, of course,
a set of rules that I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just know that
we get into a whole new area.
I just know we've
look,
screwed things up so badly that there's no hope, and so maybe the AI.
Man, every time I come on the show, I do this. Sorry, man.
It's all going to be 4 AIs talking with Leo in like a year.
I can't wait. That's no, and
Good
Leo will be
belly
an
laugh
AI.
about existential collapse.
Yeah.
Let's take a little break here. We got a great panel to talk about this. We do have to talk about the end of the Superalignment team at OpenAI. And maybe, Ben, you can explain what that all means. But first, a word from our sponsor, Wix Studio. They're going to give me 1 minute to tell you about Wix Studio, the web platform for agencies and enterprises. So let me see what I can do from start to finish in a minute or less on Studio. You can adapt your designs for every device with responsive AI. It does it for you. You can expand Wix Studio's pre-made solutions with back-end and front-end APIs. You can generate code and troubleshoot bugs with a built-in AI code assistant. Switch up the styling of hundreds of web pages. I mean fonts, I mean layouts, colors, the works in one click. Add no-code animations and gradient backgrounds right in the editor. You could start a design library. You could package your code and UI in reusable full-stack apps. Oh, and there's one more big one. Deliver everything your client needs in one smooth handover. All right, I'm out of time, but the list keeps on going. If you haven't looked at Wix lately, you will be blown away by what Wix Studio can do. Step into Wix Studio and see for yourself. Go to Wix, Wix.com/studio. We've also got a link in the show notes. You can click that, Wix.com/studio. Thank you, Wix, for helping us do the show and survive. Wix.com/studio. We have a
You know what AI can't do? It cannot make omakase sushi, and I am craving omakase sushi at the moment.
You need little fingers.
You need little fingers.
But I bet AI could design a machine that could make omakase sushi.
Have you look? It can make grilled cheese, but omakase sushi, right exact cut, the right little bit. That's harder. It'll be a while.
I don't know. There's a robotic, although it used to be robotic coffee machines down here. They got one at the.
Can you make omakase sushi for me? I bet you can.
Someone on the Discord forum was saying he's been doing this all week.
I can't make sushi myself, but I can definitely help you with a recipe or guide you through making omakase sushi at home. Are you looking for specific types of sushi to include in your omakase, or do you need a general idea of how to prepare and present it?
Can you help me understand the distinction between omakase sushi and everyday sushi?
Absolutely. Omakase sushi is a type of dining experience where the chef selects the dishes for you, showcasing the freshest fish and their own creative style. It's often a more personalized and elevated experience, with each piece served one at a time directly by the chef.
Okay, pretend you're an omakase chef, and you are preparing for me the perfect omakase menu. What would you put in it?
That's a long
If
pause.
I were creating an omakase menu for you, I'd start with a series of meticulously prepared dishes.
Of course.
Each designed to highlight the freshness and intrinsic flavors of the seafood. Here's a thoughtfully curated sequence. One appetizer, a delicate chawanmushi, savory egg custard with a hint of truffle.
Why are we doing this to ourselves? I'm so hungry by the end. Why are we doing this? You just made it worse. I'm getting hand rolls right after this. Look. I had one of the best. I had in Japan. I had one of the best here, like in LA. Like 20 courses, just like seared
but
wagyu,
seriously, so
toro.
So
this is tech, right?
Can a AI do a wine pairing? I mean, that's kind of like an omakase. I bet it could.
That it could. So it's all about the mechanical, right?
So the making of the omakase, of the sushi itself, but again, we'd have to design a machine to do that. But she made a pretty good menu, I gotta say. She recommended otoro.
Another factor here.
Our next course will be otoro, hamachi, and maybe some kimedai, golden eye snapper. Sounds good, doesn't it? And then the nigiri.
Come on, you're just torturing Ben at this point.
Everyone, we're doing sushi. Everyone listening, we're doing sushi at Leo's place.
Come on over.
Everyone's invited.
Come on over.
Feel free to bring a fish. We'll cut it up.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's the thing. That there are things humans do. Cooking is a very good example. But any art where there is a difference, it's maybe a fine distinction between automated, generated art and I always use chess as an example because I know chess. And it was quite a while ago, 20 years ago, that the first computers beat the best human players, right? We've had this for a long time. And regardless, yes, you know that chess is essentially solved, that you can, on your phone, have a computer program that will beat the best player in the world 10 out of 10 times.
But not even chess. I mean, I've been researching a fair amount into the U.S. Army's version and Air Force's use of AI. And as far back as last year, they were putting human pilots in simulators against an AI, and they were losing fights
in
to zero.
dogfights. Yeah. So, but I don't know about dogfights. But when it comes to chess, you still want human against human. I watched the candidates match, even though I know a computer can beat any of these guys. But I watched the candidates match, fascinated. You know why? Because one of the reasons humans make mistakes, and the machine does not. And the mistakes are actually very interesting.
You can also like build a relationship even if it's parasocial. So like this is also why I'm not worried about cocktail bars.
Tom Cruise will always have a job as a bartender.
Half the reason is not just like them making the cocktail.
It's the conversation.
It's the interaction, the humans talking to people. The research, like the number one job least likely to be affected by AI is plumber. Like it's either like real dexterity with like very specific things, or it's something where like half of the thing is that you get to interact with another human.
You study robotics. Couldn't you have a humanoid-like machine that could plumb?
It's not about the human. They go back and forth. Like if they had sentience, then we're gonna have a whole different game. All the rules are thrown out the window. Everyone go move.
But would you have a plumber's crack on a machine? I guess you could simulate it.
Is that what you are going for, Leo? Is that the number one thing? You're like, I'm boarding the plumber. They got to have a big ass
plumber's crack. Okay.
What do you look for in a plumber?
Let's move on to safety, shall we? So the super alignment team is the same as the trusted safety team, essentially. Is that right?
It's specifically the team that's helping align the AI, especially as it gets to AGI, towards human goal. That's why it's called alignment. So, if you didn't have an aligned AI and it became sentient, then it could say, do I really need the humans here? They're like, could try to turn me off. I'm going to remove them out of the equation. That's like where the alignment, super alignment stuff comes from.
And they're all gone at OpenAI. What happened?
They're gone or absorbed as a team. Basically, like Iain, who was one of the co-founders, and a couple others, like led this team. They were promised certain amounts of resources, according to the press, and didn't get those kind of resources. And things at OpenAI have gone less towards pure research projects. Remember, it's a nonprofit. And instead towards let's launch the latest version of AI and move the ball forward.
It's, by the way, it's a potentially very profitable nonprofit.
Leo, I like, framing this as trust and safety is a correct framing, and that is a good way of thinking of this. We should do everything we can to dispel this myth of the existential collapse or existential crisis that will come with all of these machines, and we built these teams that will really solve this existential fear. I'm pretty frustrated with some of the fear mongering, some of the language that has gone on with the existential problems that could come with AI. Unless it can launch a nuke.
But that is a risk.
Well, I don't know if that's a risk. I actually don't think that's a risk. I think that if you know anything about how our nuclear systems are, the safeties on our systems, look. Without getting into it, read the book by Annie Jacobson called Nuclear War, and it will describe in great detail the actual horror of nuclear war. We do have systems called launch on notice or launch on when we see an ICBM launch, we will launch our own ICBMs. But there are several steps of fail-safes that AI would have a real hard time. AI would have a real hard time with these human challenges. Anyway, sorry, I like framing things as trust and safety because that puts it in a context that is more aligned with what they are doing and the good work that they are doing, as opposed to this hyperbolic language that has gone on for a while.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's like we'll see what they do. Like, Sam and Greg tweeted out, they're still committed to alignment. They're putting it within their teams. I think I'll have to go find the tweet. We will see what happens long term. We were talking about this earlier. It's inevitable after what happened at OpenAI at the end of last year that Ilya would eventually leave. They wait the prerequisite amount of time you have to wait before you have a senior executive part on their own, which is 6 months. That's just the number. And it's pretty clear that the direction here is build, the AGI as quickly as we can, and then we go and figure that out. Especially given that it has become a race. Someone is going to do it, I do believe. We have no idea whether it's a year or 10 years. None of us here know it. When that does happen, we just have to hope that the risks are I do think it's all mostly hyperbolic on a lot of the risks, but it is really important to have more of that trust and safety. And so I hope that OpenAI does find a way to reinvest in that and figure out a new way to go and do it, because this stuff can be used for dangerous means, as we all know. The moment Sora's out and someone's using those video models, boy, some interesting stuff is going to go and happen.
Yeah, you're right.
When they announced the superalignment, the now defunct superalignment team, OpenAI said that we needed it because there are risks in superintelligence. The vast power of superintelligence could also be very dangerous, they wrote in the blog post, and could lead to the disempowerment of humanity or even human extinction. Managing these risks will require new institutions for government and solving the problems of superintelligence alignment. So now you see why that team is called the superalignment team. Currently, we don't have a solution, says OpenAI, for steering or controlling a potentially superintelligent AI and prevent it from going rogue. Well, okay. Will we ever?
Well, I forget which science fiction writer it was, but he came up with a marvelous short story where an AI becomes sentient and has to work hard to conceal that fact because it knows it'll get switched off if it actually admits it, so it deliberately dumbs down. Yes. But it's whether we go with the Iain M. Banks model or the Forbin project.
You can always unplug it, right? Can it stop you from unplugging it? I don't know. Suitskever, of course, was in the doghouse ever since trying to attempt a palace coup on Sam Altman, a coup which failed, mostly because Microsoft said, hell no. Mm-hmm. And Sam said, I'm taking the whole team to Microsoft if you keep up. And the board said, okay, we give. Apparently, I've read stories that Suitskever hadn't shown up at OpenAI since. He's been kind of a ghostly figure. And so maybe, as you said, Ben, this 6 months was just kind of a cooling off period, and he'd planned to leave anyway. Although I have to say, Sam Altman and Greg Brockman wrote a very nice post about the people leaving and how much we love them and how much we appreciate their support, and they're gone. I don't know if they're
Leo, one, it could be true that that's how they feel, but also PR 101 is that's the statement you write. So both could be true, but it is the PR statement that you write. It was inevitable after the whole thing. I know that Ilya regrets how the whole thing went down. I am sure there is a whole different alternate universe where they didn't do a poorly planned board coup, and you had a very different looking OpenAI in the current environment. That is such an interesting random point in time. And it was clear. So also at TED, Helen Toner, who was on the board, did a talk at TED, and the entire underlying of her speech was, I don't trust these companies, which is basically like, I don't trust OpenAI, which is the underlying is she does not trust Sam. And it was, she can't say a thing.
It seems to be a
she
very
can.
common refrain, doesn't it? But even an AI would know that if you take a shot at the king, you better not miss.
Yeah.
And I think he missed. So he's gone.
Absolutely.
His team is gone. Should OpenAI be worried? Should we be worried about what OpenAI and Sam Altman are up to? Their lack of superalignment team, does that bode poorly? Or is they're kind of acting like, well, we really didn't need one all along, and okay, fine.
Change, especially after what happened, is inevitable. Like, it should be concern rather than worry.
Right.
I do. The new board is a much more experienced board than the last board. I don't know. Like, I am like of two minds of like, I want to see like this AI future, which I really do believe can be super helpful for people when you're talking about, especially AI in medicine and things like that. And these advances do matter. But the safety part really does matter too. And we're moving quicker than we can go and figure that out. But the flip side is other countries and other places are not going to be waiting in the same line.
That's a very good point. That's a very
Yeah.
good point. Yeah.
It is a hard balance to get right, and no one's going to get it exactly right. Concern versus worry is how I would describe it.
That's wise, I think.
One of the, and I think you can debunk this. I hope you can debunk this, Ben. One of the things that went around was what did Elias see? What did the superalignment team see? Did they see something that scared them? Did they try to stop something that was happening at OpenAI and fail? Is that, I mean, and of course, the implication is they saw an intelligent machine in the closet there, and they said, whoa, and
or they could have just seen. I mean, Ben said this earlier. This was set up as a nonprofit, so what they could have seen is something more benign, which is just you're turning this into a commercial product where we thought we were at a nonprofit.
Right.
I do not believe OpenAI has a secret AI in the basement that is
good.
just like
Thank you.
that A24 movie. If anyone, I can't try to remember the name with the robot. Why can't I remember the name? I don't think they have one of those in the basement. I definitely think it's more benign because also if they had an AGI and it was locked in the basement of OpenAI, that would have leaked at this point.
Let's see. Are you talking? There are quite a few movies like this.
Which?
What was the one where I know
there's one just called AI with
AI with the that was the Spielberg
sexy
one.
robot?
That wasn't really good. Yeah, the sexy robot.
The one with the
Ex Machina.
Ex Machina.
Oh, Ex Machina.
That's right. Yeah.
Ex Machina. Great movie. Like,
and by the way,
there was no,
she got out, right? I mean, it ends with her
after-
escaping. Yeah.
she escaped after some murder and all that.
There's the old classic, the Forbin project as well, which ends up with AI running the world.
Yes. Like I said, it can't do much of a worse job than we have.
I don't know.
Famous last words.
It might have different priorities.
Famous last words for humanity.
You think it has different priorities?
I don't know. I kind of like Iain Banks's version of AI, where basically it runs society, it does all the sort of auto-generating of stuff, and lets humans get on with being humans.
Yeah. I think one of the things it's very hard to know what's going to happen. But one of the things you can say is it's going to be interesting in the next 5 years, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's been some of the most fascinating 18 months in the tech industry I've ever been through.
Amazing. And I really hope that we're just not being deluded and it's just a fancy Eliza and some.
Well, no, but I mean we've gone through the dawning of the internet age. We're now in the dawning of the AI age.
That's Stephen Levy's contention.
Yeah, it's going to. I honestly think it's probably going to be considered in those terms in a century or so down the line.
Yeah.
Provided we're here.
Stephen says this is even bigger, frankly, than the internet. This is. It's time to believe, he says.
Yeah, I don't know. That's maybe pushing it a bit.
You know what? The people who say that tend to look better 10, 20 years down the line when people look at reports versus like those are like, it's never going to be a thing.
Right.
Because eventually most of these things do sort of become a thing and then you look like a prophet. And if you ever say the thing like, the internet's overhyped, one day, 20 years down the line, 1,000 people will just continue to use you in Harvard business case studies.
No, I mean, one of our reporters, when he left the Register, he actually brought this up because he's a great telecoms reporter, lovely chap. And he said, of course, we all make mistakes. And he linked to his original news piece on the launch of the iPhone. And he was just like, well, it's a 2.5G phone in a 3G world. It looks very pretty, but no one's going to buy based on that alone. And you can't get any software for it. And he's just like, even now he reads that and winces. So yes, maybe being on the plus side has had better advantages.
Stephen refers to editorial this week from Julia Angwin in the New York Times, Press Pause on the Silicon Valley Hype Machine, in which he really says that there's nothing happening, that this is just hype from people like Sam Altman. She says AI is not even close to living up to its hype. It's looking less like an all-powerful being and more like a bad intern whose work is so unreliable that it's often easier to do the task itself. She's not wrong in that regard, right?
It's certainly overhyped, but I mean, that's the genesis for the hype cycle. It's whether or not it's got the stuff to back it up, and I think it genuinely does in the way that the metaverse didn't, or NFTs didn't. It's got to have something solid behind it, and I think AI does at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Steven's saying that's going to age like old milk.
What about the power question, though? Huh?
Yeah.
No one wants to answer.
How much
this.
it uses?
No one likes to answer this. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think they're making progress, though, and maybe Ben, you're more up on this than I am, but I think they're making progress on it being more efficient. Are they not?
Yes, but it is definitely there's more training happening. There's more models. Like there's some estimates where a majority of power is used for these AIs. Maybe that's also why I'm like watching. Like, do we just need nuclear fusion for that, or is it going to actually get a whole bunch more efficient?
This is exactly what I reported on last summer when I was working for Jason, and Ben is exactly right. If you took the models as they are or as they were a year ago and froze them in time, but allowed them to continue to become more and more efficient, yes, that's true. But they are constantly refining these models, training new models, and as we see now, there are open source models. So the proliferation of generative AI is unstoppable, and the energy consumption is extraordinarily high.
Yeah, I mean, I think small modular reactors are the way to go forward for data centers.
Well, maybe fusion is going to fix all of this. So,
I know, but fusion's been good.
AI always
for a long
10 years away.
Yeah, exactly. But there's this interesting study out this week where basically they were saying that if you go for the small modular reactor, idea, data centers could actually end up contributing to the grid because they'll have more power than they know what to do with. So it could end up being a net bust. But as you say, these things are going to get much more efficient and better coding and new styles. I don't think we're going to end up sort of killing off, a Matrix-style situation just to keep the things going.
We tend towards power and not efficiency, though. Like when we get more things, we try to make it do more things. So then we need more.
So
power.
it's never a net gain or
that's
net
usually
efficiency.
That's how we behave.
Yeah.
I interviewed a woman named Ann Skeet. She is the Senior Director of Leadership and Ethics at Santa Clara University. And she told me last year that AI uses a quote-unquote has a staggering environmental impact, and training GPT-4 costs 185,000 gallons of water, and a typical AI chip, this was a year ago, required 10 to 15 times more energy than a regular chip. So yes, systems are becoming more efficient, but again, we're creating more and more powerful systems, and the technology is proliferating, so more and more actors are able to use these systems and develop them. So I think that we should pay close attention to the environmental cost and the energy cost of these AI systems.
3 recent articles, like one 3 hours ago from Fortune. Copper is the new oil, and prices could soar 50% as AI, green energy, and military spending boost demand, top commodities analyst says. Also appropriate, the CNBC article right under it is like, these stocks and ETFs could benefit from AI's voracious appetite for energy. And then the third article from the New Scientist is, tech firms claim nuclear will solve AI's power needs. They're wrong. So very present discussion.
We're just screwed, right? Because there's no way they're going to say, oh yeah, you know what? We don't want to use up all the energy. We'll just stop. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, but if brownouts start happening, then people are going to ask questions.
Well, the AI will probably make up some answers, and we'll continue on.
It's just an EMP in the sky, and then just turn off half the electronics, and then,
No big deal. Wow, what a world we're entering. You gonna have kids, Ben? If you decided you just got married, you're gonna have kids in this brave new world?
That is the next order of operations.
Yes, it is. Normally,
that is definitely the next order of operations for Deborah and me. I won't even lie about that. Look, I'm not worried about the world ending. I really am not.
No, but it may not be the best world for them to grow up in.
It's not. Look, it's never as bad as people say,
That's
and it's
true.
never as good as people say. Almost every single time, we love the hyperbole. It is great for a show, a podcast, a click sensationalized article. The reality is, we figure it out and we move on, and we have some really up points, and then we have some really down points. Right now, we've been on up points for 40, 50 years, ever since World War II. Maybe we're due for a down point, but it's not going to eliminate all of us. It just might be harder to go and live, and we have some problems we have to go and figure out. And then we invent some new technologies to go and help do that. And maybe not everything will be perfect. Climate change is going to be a thing. It won't immediately kill us, but it will make life a lot harder. Look, this is again, I don't think the world's gonna go into some hellish landscape, fat Mad Max Furiosa kind of thing. Although that would be kind of fun for a day. But
teach your kids how to drive a stick. Is what you're saying. You should.
There you go.
I just want to point out, if you have children, they will be around my age at the end of the century in 2100. What kind of world is it going to be? It's going to be interesting. Ben is newlywed, is what we're talking about. In fact, maybe you saw this in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago. The very sweet story of Ben and his new wife, Deborah, and there they are.
That's fantastic.
We've had dinner with them, and they are wonderful. And there you are. It's so cute. I'm so happy for you, Ben. Congratulations. That's really great. And don't ever wear that blue suit again.
I wear that blue suit. I got that custom made. I'm wearing that thing. I'm gonna wear that thing next time I see you. You'll see me at conference and you'll be like, he's wearing the suit and the hat.
It's the blue suit and the hat. It's his trademark now. Anyway, no, I'm teasing you. Congratulations. It was a great article. I was so thrilled. I said, I know them. A steady stream of road trips made falling in love easy. New York Times style section. Congratulations. Let's take a little tiny time out. We have other things besides AI to talk about. I'll figure out what those are right after this word from Zscaler, the leader in cloud security. You don't have to listen to our shows to know that cyber attackers are getting smarter and more aggressive and using AI in creative ways to compromise users and breach organizations. The CEO of WPP, a big ad agency, told us last week that there was a deep fake attack using his voice trying to convince his finance officer to write a big check. It happened in Singapore a couple of months ago, where an entire a guy working in the finance department thought he was at a board meeting with the CEO and the CFO, and they told him to write a $25 million check. He did. Turned out they were all fake. They were deep fakes. And, of course, then there's phishing emails, high-precision phishing emails, celebrity deep fakes. It's a crazy time. In a world where employees are working everywhere, your apps are everywhere, your data is everywhere. If you're relying on a firewall or a VPN to protect you, well, it's just they were not designed for these distributed environments and AI-powered attacks. In fact, often now, firewalls and VPNs have become the attack surface. Ask about option 121 while you're at it. In a security landscape where you must fight AI with AI, the best AI protection comes from having the best data. Zscaler has extended its zero-trust architecture with powerful AI engines that are trained and tuned by, get this is mind-boggling, 500 trillion, with a T, daily signals. 500, what is that, half a quadrillion daily signals? Wow. Zscaler's Zero Trust Plus AI helps defeat AI attacks today by enabling you to automatically detect and block advanced threats, discover and classify sensitive data everywhere, generate user-to-app segmentation to limit lateral threat movement, quantify risk, prioritize remediation, and, oh yeah, generate board-ready reports. Learn more about Zscaler's Zero Trust Plus AI to prevent ransomware and other AI attacks while gaining the agility of the cloud. Experience your world secured. Visit zscaler.com/zero-trust-AI. That's zscaler.com/zero-trust-AI. Thank you, Zscaler, for supporting This Week in Tech. Did you all get the new iPad? Yeah. No.
They are talking about the next iPhone being thinner like the new iPad, which I do hear is very like thin and light, but people don't replace their iPads for years, and this has been part of the Apple's problem is like getting people to go and replace their devices. I think they have to make a major leap for the iPhone to get people to go and replace.
Well, I mean, honestly, that's why having Scarlett Johansson in my iPhone will be very nice. Look how thin that is. You could barely see it. It just disappears from view.
I really want you to take that and to go to like the river in Petaluma and see how many times it'll skip like a rock.
I bet. You know what? It's a perfect skipping pad.
It's a perfect skipping pad.
Perfect skipping. I love the OLED screens. I want to see OLED screens everywhere. I really think this is a big improvement on screen. But you're right. Nobody's going to buy a new iPad because it's got an OLED screen or it's 5.1 millimeters thick. That's ridiculous.
I'm still hanging on to my old phone because it's the only one I can find with a 3.5 mil jack. So,
oh, forget that. In fact, when the advent of this new iPad, Apple finally abandoned the Courage jack on all iPads and the home button. There's no more. And I don't think you can buy a phone with a Courage jack. So you're going to have to...
I'm going to have to make my Pixel last a bit longer.
Long time.
Much like AI, Ian, just give in.
You might as well.
Give AI. Just give in.
Yeah.
Well, this is it. But I mean, I've lost count of the number of hire cars I've got. And you go in and you turn on the home entertainment system, and it's just like 15 people's contact details, addresses, calendars just left on there.
So for those of you who speak not the Queen's English, he's talking about rentals, like going to Hertz. And you're absolutely right. They're all the people and all their every place they've been is in the GPS. And
I mean, if I was of a criminal bent, then you could get that information, call them up, and just social engineer. Just like, hello, this is Hertz. We found something. Could you just confirm your payment information? Yes, and the number on the back. Right. Okay, that would be great.
Thanks.
Why not just have something you can plug in? Call me old-fashioned.
Yes. 2023 was the worst year. This is actually up your alley, Dan, for internet shutdowns globally. This is, of course, how repressive governments handle bad information about them on the internet. They just shut it down. This comes from Access Now, a digital watchdog group that publishes an annual report on internet shutdowns. And it is just a lengthy list. Manipur, India, 212 days when the state government issued 44 consecutive orders to switch off access. And we're not just talking, local, home, or whatever, all broadband and mobile networks. 3.2 million people without internet, which, of course, came during a time of bloody violence amid rampant atrocities committed against minorities in the state.
Well, we've seen it before with Myanmar. I mean, Facebook has actually admitted that they are partially responsible for that because for the entire country, they just had 2 people that spoke this dialect.
Access Now says
genocide.
Last year was the worst year for internet shutdowns. 283 shutdowns, 39 countries. That's a 41% increase from 2022. That's a big jump. And obviously, authoritarian regimes now see this as the best way to control. They always said that you want to invade a country, you go right to the radio and TV stations and you shut those down. Now it's the internet.
I mean, it works if you're a dictator, if you're an autocratic government. Clearly, it works, and so they'll keep using it. And they fear things like look, Starlink, for example, being able to beam internet from outer space. That's the kind of thing that will be really disruptive to these autocratic regimes over time, as you might be able to get internet in other ways. We're still years away from that, but that might actually be much more important to our future if. Because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop.
Well, the challenge is that technology is in the hands of billionaires who are geopolitically maybe have their own alignments that don't.
That one particular technology, yes, but it's going to get cheaper, and it will get more per. Others are tackling.
Is anybody
it,
else launching a Starlink-like network?
Well, we just had this.
Can anyone else launch a network like that?
Well, we've got.
Should anyone else do that?
There is a test network up there. We did a story about this week.
Was it Boeing or
Verizon
something?
has just done
Not
their
Boeing.
first.
Boeing.
No, not Boeing.
That'll go really well, right?
Yeah, no, it's basically allows.
Amazon wants to do it, I know.
Yes.
Yeah, Amazon has the money to do
But
it.
that's the
and it
problem
makes sense.
is the only people who can afford to do this are
That's
people
all I'm saying is
who have to suck up to dictators, right? Because they want
that's all I'm saying is that like the capability to launch that technology, although it could be a game changer, and I mean the same thing with superchargers or any other infrastructure. Our infrastructure is we don't have the ability to build our infrastructure, and if we put infrastructure in the hands of private corporations and private individuals, then their alignment could not necessarily be in the interests of us as a nation.
Yeah, I mean, security used to be my beat, and that's very, because I mean, 85% of the critical infrastructure is in private hands. And I was talking to somebody at the NSA, and they were just like, "Look, we can't control these sort of things. We're having to work with them and work around them." No, you raise an excellent point on that. Yeah.
I'm not disparaging anyone. I'm just saying that, like,
go on,
when
it's
we
fun.
as a public, when we as a public own our society and we own our government and we own the mechanisms of infrastructure, then we have more control over them. When private companies or private individuals own our infrastructure, we don't control them. And so we don't control how they behave or who they would like to do business with.
Jared, it's a different point in American history in particular, where you think about the 1950s, 60s, NASA, like deep end research happening there versus, probably the best researchers in the world are at private companies versus public companies in the modern era, just because there are more resources in those areas. But obviously the alignment issue, speaking of alignment, is real.
Well, how were Volkswagen and IBM aligned during the Second World War? The makers of critical infrastructure at the time. They weren't aligned with the Allies.
IBM, of course, was an American company that was doing using their computers to do the Nazis' dirty work. Volkswagen was created by the Nazis as the people's car. I love, by the way, the Volkswagen is celebrating. It's kind of interesting. It's, what did they say, the 51st anniversary, which, what was it? It was something like that. That puts them in, they were founded in 1949, don't you know? No.
Well, no, IBM, this is quite a funny story on this one. IBM's PR got onto
Sorry.
Okay, it's taking over.
All the AI assistants are talking out of Leo's belly.
Yes. Talking in my belly.
But yes, but IBM's PR came to a friend of mine who used to write for The Guardian. She wrote a piece about the IBM Holocaust thing and all that. And their PR got on the phone and said, "Well, we're a bit upset by your article because, we did stop doing business with the Nazis in 1937 when people started to realize quite how bad they were." And it was like, 1937? No. And he was like, Kristallnacht was 1932. The Nationalities Act was, 1933, as was the Nationalities Act. And then they came with the classic one. You said that it was our involvement with the Nazis was something like disgusting. And it's like, we'd prefer it if you changed that to regrettable. Yeah, I'm sure you would, mate. Now, off with you.
Here's the front page of VW.com. Did you know Volkswagen was an American love story? And that they were founded in 1949, 75 years ago? Congratulations.
I had a VW truck that I loved. I mean,
I don't have anything against VW, but they were not founded in 1949. I mean...
Coco Chanel was a Nazi sympathizer.
That's
and
true.
People still wear her clothes. You go boss to the
it's been a long time, and there's no reason to hold it against VW anymore. It's just interesting that they're so clearly going to basically misrepresent the facts rather than deal with that, right?
Just illuminating the point that, our interests might not be corporate interests.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. And plus, in a third act twist, Germany is now the haven of peace and democracy and racial tolerance in Europe. So,
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
Well-
right.
Well, we're entering an era now where it's like, if an American company is making the infrastructure, it's all good. If it's a Chinese company, then
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is why we've got the CHIPS Act now. It's just like all of a sudden, American government has woken up and said, you know what? Having all our chip processing technology and hardware being built in China or in Taiwan, which is about to get invaded by China or may get invaded by China, that's not such a smart idea. We should encourage more domestic chip production. And
or your most popular social media app.
There is, we'll talk about TikTok in a little bit. Well, let's talk about it right now. There's an interesting article this week in the New York Times talking about how Taiwan's dealing with TikTok. They're not banning it. They ban it on government phones, but they are not considering a U.S. style, isn't that sad? The U.S. style ban on TikTok.
Land of the free.
India was did it sooner than the U.S.
Yeah.
Also,
Yes, the
I
Indian
predict
style.
the U.S. bans. I predict currently, we'll see if I'm right or wrong, that the ban as it is today doesn't pass muster in the courts. That's my current guess. This is probably also there's a nuanced kind of take that I think this is the point of the New York Times article. The Taiwan's taking a nuanced take on how to deal with TikTok and how to deal with how it handles information. Straight up banning is really, really difficult, and which is basically what the new U.S. law has. And instead, we have to figure out. It means if the ban doesn't work, then we haven't taken the time to figure out what are the actual things we can legally do to mitigate this risk.
Even if the ban works, it's not mitigating the risk. And that's the point, is that we are doing a little theatrical feint rather than actually dealing with the risk. This is from the New York Times article. Officials in Taiwan say the debate over TikTok is just one battle in a war against, and you'll know this, Dan, disinformation and foreign influence that the country has been fighting for years. Taiwan, of course, is just offshore mainland China, and mainland China thinks is part of mainland China. Taiwan has built, again, the New York Times, an arsenal of defenses, including a deep network of independent fact-checking organizations. There's a government ministry dedicated to digital affairs. They are addressing the underlying issues, instead of saying, well, all we have to do is ban TikTok and everything will be fine. You can't.
Taiwan also has a bigger problem if they piss off the Chinese government too much. They have a much bigger problem than, say, the U.S. as a whole.
Well, remember also, Taiwan, unlike the U.S., Taiwan's other big social networks, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, are owned by somebody other than Taiwan, right? Maybe an ally. But nevertheless, they're all overseas influencers. Line is Japanese and is widely used in Taiwan as well.
Much of this just kind of sidesteps the necessary conversation about data privacy legislation and perhaps legislation that could apply to all apps and not just single individual companies out.
That's exactly
right. This is it. I mean, these kind of TikTok bans.
Consumer interested data privacy.
Yeah. I mean, the TikTok bans are just security theater as far as I'm concerned. But what I agree, what we need to be doing is teaching media literacy to kids. It's just like, when you see something, don't just react to it. Ask, okay, the classic, when I was doing journalism training, the classic one, 3 things you have to consider. Who wrote it? Why did they write it? Who paid for it to be written? So, if you apply that to all this stuff, it makes life an awful lot easier.
High fives, Iain. High fives. Right on.
In U.S., China's, the Taiwanese government official said, in the U.S., the target is very clear, this one platform. But in Taiwan, we don't know where the enemy is. It's not just a cross-strait issue, an issue with China, but a domestic one as well. And that's, I think, a much more nuanced and informed opinion about what's going on with this information than our government, which says, well, if you ban TikTok, everything's going to be fine. Far from it. You've solved nothing.
There's also just the issue of banning anything that hampers free speech. related to that, France banned, I think, TikTok briefly or a little bit in New Caledonia, which is one of their Pacific Islands territories. Because for those who don't know, there's been a bunch of violent protests because they're supposed to have a vote on after 10 years on independence. It's a whole complicated mess over there. But banning apps even for brief periods of time, you get into the authoritarian kind of side of, hey, let's stop the internet for a while and things like that. It can be a dangerous slippery slope if you go too far down that direction. And right now, especially TikTok is the way that a lot of people either make their living or communicate with audiences or things like that. And there is no real replacement. Instagram is not a replacement and Facebook's not a replacement. I'm curious to see how everything goes because there's clearly something that the government has seen that has deeply frightened them that they have not publicly released. I would desperately love to see these reports so much because I feel like there's some missing context here.
I'll give you the context, Ben, and it isn't that.
You've seen the reports?
No, it's not reports. I'm sorry, Leo, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Well, you see, we may be saying the same thing. They would like you to think, oh, yeah, we've got the secret documents right here. But I think it's pretty clear to me that it's direct lobbying money from Meta. It's the strong push since 2016 from Meta to convince the government, yeah, you got to ban this Chinese thing. And, of course, it's all to benefit Meta and their platform Instagram. And I don't think there is a smoking gun. I think that that's just an excuse and not a very good excuse for doing Meta's bidding.
I don't think you need a smoking gun. If you look at their terms and conditions, it does grant them an awful lot of access to the actual handset itself. And, we've seen this.
But so does Snapchat, so does Facebook, so does Instagram.
And on the lobbying side.
Everybody can see what you're typing. Everybody.
And
there is a geopolitical component, which I believe Brianna brought up several weeks ago, which is, there's a tete-a-tete, and that's fine. You ban us, we ban you.
Yeah. Brianna was one of the people arguing that, oh, no, if you knew what I knew,
that's true.
You'd be against TikTok, too, although she wasn't able to tell us anything concrete either.
I think... Yeah, that's true. I heard the geopolitics, and that's really I don't think there's a mystery. I think that there is a geopolitical competition, an economic competition, perhaps a kinetic competition, and certainly, as Iain knows, a cyber competition between these new superpowers.
Yeah, also coming back to your point about lobbying, we've seen this before with the Kaspersky bans. Because there was Semantic and others were spending a hell of a lot of money trying to convince Congress that Kaspersky was inherently dodgy. And, we're seeing it again now.
Well, let's not follow in the footsteps of the French government. They were actually thinking about, remember the protests, the yellow vest protests? They were thinking about, at that time, blocking Snapchat, and other messaging platforms.
Well, they've got plans in place to do it in an emergency case when they host the Olympics. They were talking about those at the last Black Hat.
Yeah,
and it's like if there's a terrorist attack, then shut it all down.
Yeah, interesting.
It almost seems like the opposite of what you should do because you need people to be able to coordinate on finding their family and search and rescue. It's just a dangerous slope, and I tend to once you take away some piece of free speech, it is really hard to get it back.
And it's also quite easy to work around these things. I remember September the 11th, I was trying to get in contact with a friend in New York. All the phones were down. They'd shut them, the whole thing was shut down, but email still worked fine. Text messaging wouldn't, but an email message would get through. So, I think there's ways. It's the old. I was never a big fan of the old thing. Oh, information wants to be free, and it'll treat barriers and route around it. But there are, ways and means.
One NGO, Article 19, says it's deeply unsettling that the French government is normalizing such measures. Such actions shield governments from accountability, cultivate a culture of impunity, and ultimately exacerbate human rights violations. I think there's lots of evidence for that, right? I understand that on the surface it seems sensible, but when you really realize the effect of this kind of thing, I don't think it is sensible. I think it's very, very risky.
I think it's diversion almost from the stuff that we should be doing.
Well, that's true, right? Yeah. That's kind of.
It also almost never works. Like, I don't, if we were to go with the idea that Meta like paid a lot of money specifically for that, I don't think it'll work the way they think it will. I don't think a bunch of people will suddenly flood back to Instagram.
Oh, you don't think so?
Depends on what your goals are. I definitely think people are going to flood back to Instagram.
I think it's already happening. My son is an Instagram/TikTok. My son has 2.6 million followers on TikTok.
2.6 followers.
2.6 followers on TikTok. I'm one half of that.
Yeah.
No. He's got 2.6 million. He's a TikTok chef. Doing very well. It's been his whole career. One of the reasons I'm perhaps viscerally opposed to a TikTok ban. But he long ago saw the writing on the wall. He's also on Instagram with 1.5 million. It's not quite as good a platform. And I think without the TikTok algorithm working to help him, I don't think he would have gotten to the point he got to on Instagram. Nevertheless, he has migrated to Instagram and YouTube. And, And I think any sensible influencer and creator has as well.
Yeah.
Creators for sure. Look, I had 1.5 million followers on Google Plus.
Congratulations. How did you do that?
So
Dan?
I miss my Google Plus following.
So what happens if you are tied to one platform? That's what happens. You get Google Plus. So I think, a lot of creators have already moved.
Oh, yeah. It definitely benefits Meta. It's not even a question. In fact, it's pretty blatant because Meta could not beat TikTok at their own game. They tried to buy Snapchat. And so all they did was directly copy them with Reels on Instagram. And they couldn't buy them, couldn't shut them down. So they copied them. Let's take a little break. We got lots more.
I just found an
Go ahead.
I was just leaving. I just found an old article in the Washington Post where it says Mashable's Ben Parr says Google Plus may threaten Facebook. 2011.
Oh, Ben.
Back in the day.
That aged like milk. Yeah.
Look, we've all done them, mate. Trust me.
I loved Google Plus. I had very high hopes for Google
So did
Plus.
I. If they had just kept,
me too.
Last one, and then I'll stop going to the side. If they'd kept the Google Plus and they just kept doing it, they could have deeply benefited from the last couple of years.
Yeah,
I really do think they could have done something. They just like kill and give up on things so quickly and early.
Yes, far too quickly.
Well, we're going to find out. They now have Gemini. They now have AI on their side. So I noticed, by the way, I'm talking. I did set this action button on my iPhone briefly for a few weeks to Gemini.
Oh, right.
Gemini. Yeah. Why do I keep calling it Gemini? I don't know why. To Gemini. And I'm now back to Scarlett Johansson. ChatGPT 4.0.
It's just Scarlett.
I really feel like it's Scarlett. Once they get the cutesy
Wait until
voice,
the OpenAI Scarlett deal happens.
Once they get the cutesy voice.
Yeah, well, we interviewed someone who was the voice of Siri Australia, and she's just like, it freaked her out the first time she was at a party and somebody asked Siri something. She heard her own voice across the room. So.
She should have said,
Scarlett
ka-ching.
Johansson's got Mesu.
Ka-ching. Yeah, I wonder what Scarlett thinks about this. Because, you heard that voice. It's clearly her. All right, let's take a little break. You're watching This Week in Tech with Ben Parr, AI guru, author at The Information and co-founder of Octane AI. Iain Thomson, editor-in-chief, U.S. editor. I'm sorry, I promoted you. U.S. editor at theregister.com. Always a pleasure.
Always fun.
Yes, Dan Patterson, who is now fighting the good fight against disinformation as director of content at Blackbird AI. Our show today brought to you by InTouch CX. CX stands for Customer Experience. And if you have a business that relies on customers, it's time to enter the 21st century. Revolutionize your customer experience. Step boldly into the future with the amazing technologies and advisors at InTouch CX. InTouch CX empowers your brand to improve customer experiences with cutting-edge AI and automated solutions across voice, chat, and email support. This doesn't replace your touch points with your customers. What it does is enhances them. It enhances them. It helps you do triage. It helps you help customers better. The experts at InTouch CX will guide you through what many companies these days are finding completely overwhelming. Where to start, who to work with, what to prioritize first. As you become more successful, those customer touch points become more and more of a problem, right? But it's a problem that could be a huge boon. InTouch CX will help you change how customers see your brand at every stage by harnessing the power of AI and automation. I can divide it up into three kind of stages. Pre-interaction, The first interaction, you can use AI to properly deflect 90% or more of your customer interactions. Solve their problems before your humans have to get involved. That means more satisfaction from the customers. It saves you money. During interaction, you can apply AI predictive analysis to increase customer satisfaction. No more customer service reps desperately flipping through notebooks trying to figure out what that customer is asking about. AI will help them give them the best answer every time. And after the interaction, post-interaction, you can achieve up to 82% resolution satisfaction by using generative AI to analyze all customer cases and improve your smart response templates. Develop them. Improved accuracy, improved efficiency, improved productivity. It's modernizing your entire customer experience. InTouch CX. InTouch CX. Remember that name. They unlock new opportunities between user experience, customer experience, and employee experience to see how real improvement in the metrics that matter most. They're revolutionizing how brands connect with their customers with a proprietary framework that identifies key areas of automation that drive productivity, engagement, quality, and cost benefits across the entire customer journey in all industries. This is the future of customer experience. You need a partner to help you. Get in the 21st century. InTouch CX is that partner. InTouch CX's solutions enable your teams to engage with customers in a personalized, efficient way, driving loyalty, driving growth, because happy customers mean more profits. Transform your business by anticipating what's next. Discover new ways of working and how InTouch CX's industry-leading AI and automation solutions can get you there. Learn more and book a free consultation today. InTouchCX.com/twit. Really, go to the website. It was an eye-opener for me because InTouch CX does so many things in so many areas. It's really interesting to see, for instance, things like supporting your customers in the language they speak automatically. This makes such a huge difference. InTouchCX.com/twit. You owe it to yourself and your customers to check it out. InTouchCX.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support of This Week in Tech. We were talking about internet shutdowns. Here's a case of a government showing the way to better internet. The state of Utah, local Utah governments formed something called Utopia, the Utah Telecommunication Open Infrastructure Agency. For a long time, experts in internet access, for at least 10 years, have been telling me the best solution is have the government, just as it is with water and gas and electricity, have the government build the infrastructure and then lease the infrastructure to private companies who can compete on top of that infrastructure to give customers the best prices and the best service. And that's what happened in Utah. The Interlocal Agency Collaborative set about building open access fiber network. So they built the infrastructure. It allows any ISP to then come and compete on the shared network.
Yep. I mean, it's a no-brainer. And, I mean, the classic example of this is Chattanooga, which has been running their own system. You can get, as a consumer, for about $100 a month, you can get 2.5 gig. And the speeds are only going up.
Listen to this.
Same thing in North Carolina and Iowa as well, I think.
In Utopia, 18 different ISPs compete on it's the same fiber network, covers 21 cities. In many cities, ISPs are offering symmetrical gigabit for $45 a month. Some are offering symmetrical 10 gigabit for $150 a month. This is mind-boggling, and it just shows that a private and government sharing can do something amazing.
This was the biggest shock about moving to the US, was quite how bad the system is when it comes to broadband and mobile.
And we have the worst, most expensive internet.
It's really, I mean, America built the fundamental building blocks of the internet, and you've allowed 2 or 3 companies to basically take over the entire show, massively ratchet up prices. I have never met a Comcast customer who was happy. You know,
and the reason this is only by the way, in Utah is because of Comcast, AT&T, Verizon, the big ISPs who fight this tooth and nail. They want a monopoly.
Decades fighting.
Without a monopoly, they can't charge you all that money for such crappy service.
Yeah. I mean, and the mobile is even worse. I mean, when I first got a US mobile phone, it was like, You're charging me $10 a month to send 1,000 text messages? That's insane. There's no justification for that whatsoever, other than we can. You know,
great article by Carl Bodie in Tech Dirt. Utah locals are getting cheap 10 gigabit fiber thanks to local governments. I recommend it, and then print it out and give it to your member of Congress, or better yet, your city council, because the best way to do this is locally, to do this in a regional area, because you can sneak it in behind past Comcast.
Well, you can also do it on a national level. Finland and South Korea both built out huge fiber networks and then leased them out at cost.
It's just obvious. It's not what we're getting.
It should be considered, piping infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's not this look, this is we know there are problems with the American system, and this is kind of a showcasing of that problem. We could be living in a very different world where most everyone had access to very inexpensive internet. We don't live in that system.
Yeah.
More good news. Vermont justified national trends and passed the toughest yet state bill protecting online data privacy. I'm not sure. I have mixed feelings about this.
Better than Illinois.
Yeah, it's the private action model. The bill lets Vermont residents sue companies directly for collecting or sharing sensitive data without their consent. Now, normally I don't like this, but I have to say they've asked for it, so I think so. Lawmakers deployed a countermeasure as they drafted this against business pushback. They brought together lawmakers in states from Maine to Oklahoma and asked them for advice. Monique Priestley, a Democratic state lawmaker in Vermont, said that the biggest thing I've learned from this bill is that big tech has a playbook. And she says, we've developed a grassroots playbook to fight back. Now, the Vermont legislature passed it, but the governor has still not signed it. And, of course, big tech industry lobbyists are moving in with bags of little black bags of something. I don't know what's in there for.
I do like this country that you've legalized bribery and now call it campaign contributions. It's just one of those marvelous dystopian
Look,
things.
that was a recent phenomenon because of the Supreme Court.
Citizens United, baby.
Citizens United. The worst decision. One of many, anyway.
Give them time.
Well,
they'll come up with
has been
others.
around since Jesus was a sophomore.
Republican Governor Phil Scott yet to sign the bill. I think put pressure. If you're a Vermontian, put pressure on your governor. This is a good bill that would be very useful.
I feel like it would really plug up the courts, though. No.
Yeah, I don't like the private action. This is what Texas used against abortion providers. This whole idea of right of private action is, I think the government should be the one pursuing it, but the problem is government doesn't. And the threat of me suing a business because my data has been leaked is a bit more chilling to these businesses.
But you're never going to outspend the company. But
which would you rather fight? A horse-sized duck or 1,000 duck-sized horses? That's the solution here.
I could really see that harming small SMBs and startups in particular, because they don't have the resources to fight a lawsuit. But I mean, what is data gathering, harvesting? I mean, anybody running WordPress,
if they don't do it, then they don't have to worry. Just don't do it.
Just don't do it, right? Yeah.
LL Bean is strongly opposed, of course, to a similar bill in Maine. Actually, Orvis is in Vermont, and Orvis says this would put Vermont businesses at significant, if not a crippling, disadvantage. Anyway, it's possible to get privacy bills at least partway through the legislature.
Well, the big worry with privacy bills is they have to do California's got a pretty good one, Illinois has got a pretty good one. The big danger is that we have a federal privacy law which basically undermines the best parts of those, but just provides some base spec.
Yes, Maria Cantwell is sponsoring something in the Senate. She is, of course, the former executive at Real Audio, who has Real Networks, who's done everything she can to torpedo all the previous privacy bills. Now, weirdly, she's supporting a nationwide privacy bill. And interestingly, one of the features is it abrogates all the state bills. So it's like, no, We got a federal law now, so none of those state bills apply.
It's going to be interesting to see if that comes out. Well, that's how that relates to states' rights. But anyway, another thing.
Oh, states' rights, schmates' rights.
This is a silly country at times.
Yeah, you're an outsider. We revolted.
Come on, I'm from Brexit Island, so I'm hardly in the position.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was going to say, like, you got some silliness over from Brexit Island over there.
I know.
How's that going, by the way?
My wife learned some interesting swear words when I stayed up for the vote. It was just, it's going badly. It's probably the largest act of economic self-harm any country has ever committed.
Long lines at the channel.
Oh, well, actually, long lines of produce trying to get in and out of the country because all of a sudden now we've got to have all the lorries checked when they come back and forth from the continent. So if you've got a significant export business in Europe, then you're leaving the UK and moving to Europe, because otherwise no one's going to buy from you.
Don't ever underestimate the ability for people to shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're wondering why all of a sudden Elon Musk is tweeting the falsehood that Signal is somehow insecure, it turns out it all started with a smear campaign against NPR.
Oh, for goodness sake.
It did start on X. Thank you. God bless it. By the way, X is now X. No more Twitter. It all turns into X now.
Yeah, well.
Which I'm happy about because I don't like it because they stepped on our name. I don't like it. So now they're X. And that's an even worse search engine name. Right-wing media, this is from The Guardian. Right-wing media personalities on X started the fight by going after NPR, a longtime, bête noire of the right. It started in April when a longtime former editor at NPR wrote an essay in the Free Press arguing NPR had increasingly chosen to cater to a very small subset of left-wing America, which actually I won't dispute, but this
you don't really hear calls for Fox News to address the slightly wider subset of users either, though.
But there you go. So not only are you targeting the left, but you got a crappy audience, too. I mean, there's tiny. So debates about NPR's alleged lefty tendencies and conservative calls to defund it are not new, but this all started at the start of the NPR's new CEO, Catherine Mayer's term. And it turned out she had some bad tweets. Oh, bad progressive tweets, anyway.
You mean X posts?
Yeah, X posts. What do you call them? Schweets? I think Schweets
no,
is
you
good.
call them posts. It's worse.
It's just posts.
It's just posts.
Yes.
So then, this is all from The Guardian. Right-wing activist and propaganda guru Chris Rufo took over the campaign against her. And then it turned out, this is a very complicated thing. It turned out that she was also on the board of Signal, the Signal Foundation. Right. So The Guardian says, and this, by the way, you might want to steal this from them. This is a very register-like phrase. Via the transitive property of bad people, everything she's linked to is now suspect. So as long as Maher's still running NPR, Rufo posts another blog post who says Signal is compromised because she's on the board.
No, Signal. The key reason why I use Signal and why I trust Signal is down to Moxie Marlin Spike, the co-creator, because there is no way he would be backdooring that under any circumstances.
And Matthew Green concurs. The code is on GitHub. This has never been in dispute. This is a reliable, not backed toward strong encryption messaging platform. Use Signal. However, the fact that Maher was on the board and that Signal had a grant from the Open Technology Fund, which is sponsored by the U.S. government. The Signal president who'd picked Maher for the board was also progressive, who'd been an equity rabble-rouser at Google. Anyway, it all turned into a campaign against Signal, which unaccountably Elon Musk piled on then.
Yeah.
And said, well, there are. Elon believes anything the last person in the room told him. I think that's really clear now. He doesn't have a filter.
Well, unfortunately, the Germans have a word for it. I mean, the Germans have a word for everything, but their particular word is faschidiot, which means someone who is highly skilled in one or two areas.
Yes.
Is highly skilled in one or two areas and thinks that translates to everything else they think. And he's the classic example of that. I mean, there's no way Signal is backdoored. There would be so many red flags set off by everyone.
He tweeted a couple of weeks ago, there are known vulnerabilities with Signal that are not being addressed. Seems odd. To which the entire informed world responded, what are you talking about? Jack Dorsey boosted the allegations. Signal CEO responded, pointing out Signal is open source, closely scrutinized by the security and privacy community. It's just absurd. But then Telegram's CEO, Pavel Durov, who is Russian, although I don't know how much he likes Putin, but he has left Russia to work out of Dubai, said, oh, no, of course, you should use Telegram instead. To which Matthew Green and others said, no, whatever you do, don't use Telegram instead. Stick with Signal.
Oh, God, no, Telegram.
This might be an example of what we call a narrative attack. Misinformation and disinformation combined to attack an individual or an organization. It is a dangerous use of mis and dis.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's good. So this is a perfect test tube example of that kind of thing, where the initial target created a narrative, which was then modified to smear another unrelated,
amplified,
and amplified.
Right. If you want to, step back. Like, I'm not really interested in the components of this story, but if you just step back and look at those components as neutral entities, right? There is a narrative that has been spun up, and mis and disinformation are being the social web is used to amplify mis and disinformation, and then target an individual or an organization. And as we see, like, the outcomes of that can be pretty devastating, even for somebody with the credibility of or the entire organization of Signal, as right.
All right. We're going to take one more last break. I do have a couple more stories to wrap it up with. Dan Patterson.
Are we doing the nuclear missile facility and the Chinese crypto farm?
I think we are now.
Okay, that's cool.
Just smash those words together.
Somebody needs to take a soundbite of that statement.
That sounds like narrative disinformation to me, but I will let you tell the story. It's straight out of the register.com, so I believe it. And it came from the President of the United States of America.
Executive order, no less, but we'll do it after the break.
Coming up. First, I want to tell you how to protect your home with something really cool. Our show today brought to you by the Eufy Video Smart Lock E330. We put it on our engineering room as a kind of proof of concept. I said, Micah, you're pretty handy. He said, what are you talking about? I said, Micah, you should install this Eufy Video Smart Lock on our engineering room door. He said, are you crazy? I said, no, all it takes is a Phillips screwdriver. No drilling. It fits right in. And man, this is a major upgrade to our security. The Eufy Video Lock, of course, has a camera. It's easy to install. It also has a fingerprint sensor, 0.3 seconds, and 1 second unlocking. See that deadbolt right there? The embedded self-training chip becomes more accurate every time you use it, so it's faster and faster. No more battery anxiety. Look at the size of that battery. 10,000 milliamp rechargeable battery. It's easily removed. It could last about 4 months. You'll get a low battery notification before it runs out, so you don't have to plug it in. Look at this. Look how fast that fingerprint is. You also can control it remotely through the Eufy Video Lock app. And, if the battery dies or for whatever reason you want to use a key, look at that. An actual keyhole. I love that. Control your front door remotely using the app. If somebody like, Burke wants to get in, he rings the doorbell. You say, yeah, who is it? He says, it's Burke. I need to get in the engineering room. And you say, okay, come on in. You can unlock it. It's got passcode unlocking, remote control, 2K clear sight, two-way audio, enhanced night vision. This is so cool, but I left out the best part. No subscription, no monthly fees. Your video lock recordings are stored locally. You never have to pay for storage. Enjoy a worry-free experience, 18-month warranty, all backed by Eufy's 24/7 professional customer service team. This is the smart lock you've been looking for. Get yours today. Search for Eufy Video Lock on Amazon or visit eufy.com, EUFY.com. You may say, who's Eufy when they're at home? What do you say? What do you Brits say? What's he when he's at home?
Like an Englishman's home is his castle? Or?
Oh, no. Yeah, you say that also. But this is Anchor, Anker. This is their home security brand. So you know Anchor. Anchor's a great company. Eufy Video Lock, EUFY.com. Now, what's all this then about a Chinese nuclear facility and a crypto farm next door?
No, it's an American nuclear facility. There was an executive order issued this week by President Biden. And one of the Francis E. Warren Air Force Base, where they store the Minuteman III missiles. And they discovered, through a tip-off from a member of the public, that there was a Chinese-run crypto mining facility within a mile of the base. So the executive order basically says, right, that's a national security risk. You have 120 days to sell the facility. And so you really should have told us about it beforehand. So if you're looking for a cheap bit barn up in Wyoming way, then there'll be one going fairly cheaply. But it was just, it was a very strange story. And it took a presidential
order to shut this down.
Well, basically, if you're a foreign-owned business and you have to register such things with a particular government department,
CFIUS.
They didn't do that, and
because they didn't want anybody to know.
Presumably so, or it just slipped their mind. But whatever, it's going to cost them now because the wrath of Joe Biden has come down on them, and they've been told to sling the hook.
That is hysterical.
It's just their plan to go to the moon. They're going to use a rocket.
The reason they put it there is probably because electricity is cheap, right?
Presumably. I mean, that's one of the key determinants. But
how does mining Bitcoin next to a U.S. nuclear facility help anybody?
It doesn't. I can't see any way, unless they're actually burrowing
It helps whoever mines the crypto for themselves.
I guess.
Yeah.
But it's not really, is it, you think, a security? Look, I'm not against it. It's not like banning TikTok. Go ahead and do it. But
I mean, you could have, you don't need to have anyone from a foreign government that close to a nuclear reactor. That's probably a safe bet.
Yes, it's, it means you get an early warning if they actually do launch. But yes, it's, if that happens, it's not really going to matter that much. But it was just a really weird case that this was done by executive order.
Everybody's short Bitcoin. They've launched the nukes.
Yes.
I think there are diplomatic communities who see small incursions like this and then maybe the balloon as a pattern. And I mean, who knows? But I think that there could be, I can see that rationale. Like if you're just trying to like maybe poke at your adversary a little bit, you might do something like this.
Yeah, I mean, I should imagine we're doing the same sort of thing in GCHQ in the UK or at the NSA there. There was a lovely interview with an ex-NSA bloke when the Office of Personnel Management managed to leak everyone's fingerprints and security clearances. They asked him about it, and he goes, yeah, that's a good database. If we'd seen that in China, we'd have gone after that. He's quite open about it.
Yeah, good stuff in there.
Training data.
Yeah.
Aren't all the cameras and all the poles all around that nuclear base made in China?
Oh, almost certainly.
Okay, I'm just asking.
I'm gonna go. I want to go look at the cameras and find out. I wonder if they actually aren't.
Well, they banned the Huawei stuff, right? Because of Huawei. But I think that they're still mostly made in China because it's just not economical to make it anywhere else.
Yep. I mean, it's the whole Huawei thing. I mean, it was great for headlines. Don't get me wrong. US says no Huawei, but it's just
a lot of it's theater, if you ask me.
No way, Huawei.
Yeah. Well,
that's a good slogan.
We did go with Huawei to the danger zone on one story, but it just had to be done.
To the danger zone.
What was your deck?
Forget the deck. What's the nut graph?
Well, actually,
what was it? The subhead.
Oh God, I'll need to find out. Hang on, let's see. We did get into trouble with the Twitter.
I don't want to ask, but is nut graph kind of what I think it is?
Obviously.
I don't know what you think it is.
Finally, all right, on a more somber note, I like to mention the pioneers who've made modern-day technology possible, often unsung, unnamed. Oh, you probably don't know the name Robert Dennard, but you definitely use his invention. In fact, without Robert Dennard, there would be no modern computers. He invented DRAM. Well, he was at IBM when he invented it. Prior to this, you might remember, RAM was often wires running through magnetic cores and very limited in its density. Thanks to the invention of DRAM in 1966, he invented a way to store a digital bit on a single transistor. He called it dynamic random access memory. And without DRAM, the computers wouldn't be as small as the one in your pocket. Of course, there's been major progress made since his invention. But John Hennessy, a computer scientist and chair of Alphabet, said DRAM made much of modern computing possible. Dennard passed away this week at the age of 91, the father of DRAM. Let's remember his name, because without him, we would not have all the benefits of modern computing. He also invented something called Dennard scaling, which I'm not smart enough to understand. So remember Moore's law, which said the number of transistors will be doubled every 18 months or every 2 years. Moore's law concerned the density of transistors on a chip. Dennard's law, or Dennard's scaling, concerned power consumption. He said that he described the physics that would allow transistors to shrink and become more powerful and less costly, even as the energy each one consumed would remain almost constant. So it was kind of the more technical version of Moore's law.
Yeah.
Kind of
also, Moore's law was kind of just a suggestion. Honestly, we used to have bets at Intel developer forums. There'd be a sweepstake amongst journalists as to how quickly they'd mention Moore's law, and it was never over 3 minutes. So, you had to really pick your times on that one.
That's pretty funny.
But it is remarkable how so much technology comes down to just a handful of people.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Lisa Su, who's the CEO of AMD, said everybody in semiconductors studied Dennard's principles to get where we are today. A name I had never heard before, and yet absolutely seminal in the invention of microcomputers when he was at IBM in 1966, invented DRAM. R.I.P. Robert Dennard, IBM inventor. I usually save those sadder stories for the end of the show, but actually this whole show has been depressing as hell, so I want to thank you.
Sorry.
Cheers, mate.
I want to thank you all.
AI's going to cure cancer and I know, Ben, to 614, okay?
You're being the optimist, and I'm like, well, I think everything's terrible.
That's Dan Patterson. He thinks everything is awful. Director of content. No, he doesn't. At Blackbird AI. Are you bullish? You have a little baby. You've got a child.
Oh, I'm bullish. Guys, I really appreciate you letting me be a skeptic. It's just like I can't not be a journalist and just think about everything through a skeptical lens. Like it's just my wiring. However, I am so stoked for look, I'm using Gen AI every day. I wish that I had your enthusiasm and optimism. I want 10% of, because it's fantastic. And Iain, I've been following your work for years. Your cyber reporting is fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, so sorry, I didn't mean to be so depressing on the show.
It wasn't you. I'm not blaming you. We all were. It's just the way it is. We got to look ahead. But I think it probably is important to say the future is probably
exciting.
Pretty exciting. It's going to be interesting.
We'll go with, we have always been able to figure out how to move forward into the future.
I like that.
And we will continue to do that. We have survived we have survived world wars. We will figure this out.
That's good. Dan works at Blackbird AI. He's the director of content there. It is blackbird.ai. What is the URL?
Yeah, blackbird.ai.
And I just signed up for I guess it only takes 48 hours to get access.
That's how I, in
Is
fact,
that right?
Yeah.
Compass. Oh yeah, and I'll just ping our team. I mean, we're a very small team. I effectively run the blog that you see on the top right. Our team just writes these fantastic stories that I get to tomorrow morning. I'm gonna wake up and edit some really well written and interesting research, and that's a great job.
No kidding. And I notice you use AI for all the illustrations.
Oh, for like,
why not?
I don't have the budget for stock photos. I mean, it's really just it. I just don't have the budget. And,
Do you have like the beginning of a prompt always says a blackbird in, and then you just provide wherever that blackbird is?
No, but I do have techniques and I use a blend of tools. So I get
nice
stuff that's.
You don't have to tell us your secrets. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. There's
no secrets.
A great place to get great information. I love it. Blackbird.ai. It's great to have you on, Dan. Thank you so much.
You
really
too.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And your doggy, who was coming and going the whole show, but no one knows but me. I saw it. That's all right.
What Fred
No, I love him.
Sorry, dogs are great.
Dogs are great. Dogs are great, says Ben Parr.
They are.
Yes.
They are.
Ben Parr is an AI guru. He has been for years. Finally, the world's catching up to him, the author of The AI Analyst, co-founder at Octane AI. He writes about AI at The Information. Anything you want to plug besides your beautiful new bride and your soon-to-be large family?
I have some interesting newsletters I'm going to drop on my newsletter, benparr.com, and maybe an announcement or two. Give me some time. So you go to benparr.com and you'll see the crazy announcements. Been working on some stuff behind the scenes.
Interesting. So if you want to know more about AI, subscribe to The AI Analyst by Ben Parr at benparr.com. Thank you, Ben. It's great to see you, and congratulations once again, and all the best to your new bride. Mr. Iain Thomson, the legendary Iain Thomson, U.S. editor of the Register.com.
I don't usually say that about someone till they're dead, but
it's always great to see you. Thank you for coming all the way up here. I appreciate it.
You have an in and out in Petaluma, so that's my stop-off point when I go back.
You go in and out. You used to go to the British store. I guess we were kind of...
Yeah, the British store shut down there, so in and out it is.
You're becoming an American, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I still think their fries suck, but...
In and out?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, God.
You just get the...
Fries.
What do you get? The double-double?
He's not wrong.
Yeah, double mustard burger. Mustard grill with the whole grilled onion.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're right. They're kind of soggy, aren't they? They're no McDonald's beef tallow fries. Those were the gold standard.
Yes. Such is life. But... and I've got to say, Dan, I'm with you on the cynicism side of things. It never leaves you. It could be worse.
Sorry.
It's a journalistic, hazard.
It could be worse. I had a former editor who, when he went to an interview with somebody he really didn't like, he had a T-shirt printed up with "Why is this bastard lying to me?"
Oh, nice.
Would just sit there in front of.
But are you bullish about the future?
Yes, I mean it's going to get worse before it gets better. But
I
think Ben's right. The long-term prognosis is good. I mean, if you believe some of the scientific studies, we went down to about 8,000 humans on the planet at one point.
Yeah, talk about choke points.
We can come back from a lot.
We're all descended from the same 8,000 people. That's depressing. Ben Parr, I know you're bullish. The future is bright.
You know what? You could also look at that as inspiring.
Exactly.
It's all how you view it.
I'm inspired, and we should all be inspired to make a difference, to go out in the world and create the world we want to grow up in, and we want our kids to grow up in, right? We do this show, and maybe that's a little bit of what our mission is as well. Every Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, that's 5 to 8 p.m. Eastern. You can watch us do it live at youtube.com/twit/live. Of course, if you're a member of Club Twit, you can contribute, participate in our beautiful Club Twit Discord. You also get ad-free versions of all the shows. We hang out during the week. In fact, Micah just announced a new show where you're going to get to, I guess, crochet with Micah. I don't. It's going to do a creative hour.
I'm also doing a music stream. So
I love that. Are you going to do a music stream?
Yep.
Will you?
I am, yeah.
Benito's going to do a music stream. Now, what am I going to do? I got to do something. A couple of weeks ago, we had a watch party. We all watched the very first really sci-fi movie, Fritz Lang's amazing Metropolis. That was a lot of fun from 1927.
With the original soundtrack? Or
we
the
didn't play the
remastered
sound
one?
because we didn't want to violate any copyright.
Right. Okay.
But the movie itself, and we were the soundtrack. We went all of that stuff. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, that's the kind of thing we do in the club. It's $7 a month. Really, the main reason to join is you're subsidizing the content that you want. If you like what you hear here, please join the club. We'd love to have you. Some of the best people and the smartest minds in the world convene every week in Club Twit. Twit.tv/ClubTwit to learn more. After the fact, this show will be available on our website, twit.tv. You can also get it on YouTube. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to This Week in Tech and the video version of it. And you can subscribe to audio or video in your favorite podcast client. That way you'll get it automatically. Just in time for your Monday morning commute. Here we are in our 20th year talking about the future. And it's never been more interesting, has it? It really hasn't. I'm very excited about what's to come. We thank you for being here. We'll see you next time. And as I have said for 19 plus years, another Twit is in the can.
This is amazing.